Alright, yo, what is going on, guys? Hutcho322 here, and today we have the ASL Season 4 Offseason Draft. And today, commentating for you guys, go ahead and introduce yourselves.
What's up? I'm Excellent Name, also known as Ian.
Hey guys, I'm Malone, also known as Malone.
Alright, so these are going to be the commentators for you guys. Basically, just to run through real quickly before we go ahead and start the draft. It's going to be 3-second picks, or 30-second picks, so make them quick, and otherwise you are at risk of being skipped. And yeah, we're going to go ahead and start by adding Keister, the first pick, and once he makes the pick, we will go ahead and get going. So go ahead and talk about first picks that you guys could possibly see.
Yeah, I probably see something like a Celesteela or Mega Kangaskhan coming from him. He definitely likes some bulk in his Pokemon that also have offensive prowess.
Yeah. But with this draft, there's obviously 28 people, so picks are going to go pretty fast.
You guys both have the stream open correctly?
Yeah,
we do. For that reason,
in the first pick,
it's Kyurem Black, and this is kind of along the same lines as I was thinking. Definitely a very bulky Pokemon, a lot of offensive prowess, but also very good at stalling people out with Roost. It's got some good resistances with that Dragon typing, so definitely going to be good here.
Yeah, definitely. Kyurem Black is usually the top pick in the draft. Like, I've seen it go top 5 in most drafts, and hopefully Keister, one of the coders that's done the best in the ASL, does well. But now we have the second pick, which is Celesteela, and Celesteela is really just a monster. I personally hate facing it because you don't know what set it's gonna run. It's really good.
Yeah, once again, it's that versatility of both being offensive and defensive that's going to be really good, especially in a 28 Pokemon draft where your top picks are going to be pretty limited. Like, they've got another 40-something picks that are going to be going through before they get another pick, so it's going to be a lot less quality pick next time. So picking these versatile Pokemon is definitely a strong idea. Also gives him a nice steel type as well as a ground immunity, which is obviously very helpful for his draft. The next pick we have is Mega Venusaur. Once again, very versatile, insanely bulky, very difficult to take down, especially with thick fat, but also has some very good offensive stats, can definitely lay on the hurt both physically and specially with some pretty solid coverage.
Yeah, Mega Venusaur allows for some of the best firewater grass cores. We've seen it used pretty well in the ASL in the past, and hopefully JQ can use it well in the offseason.
Yeah, it did snipe the Celesteela Mega Venu core that is so dreaded in this league though.
Yeah. And the fourth pick is going to be Manaphy for Just Pushes Buttons at AK Mat in the Totodile Hotspur. Manaphy is just tail glows. But as we saw in some things, like another thing which I can't spoil, it can be run defensively because its stats are all 100. So Manaphy's just an overall solid mon. So good to see it go.
Yeah, base 100 stats across the board is definitely very good. It's way better offensively than defensively, which is means that you kind of know what you're going to expect when you see it, but it definitely does leave a lot open to different options and threat, which is good. Mega Kangaskhan is the newly allowed Pokemon drafted by Cam here. It's been banned for a while just because of how good it is with Parental Bond. Very powerful Pokemon, but Seismic Toss is banned on it now, so it's not going to be hitting quite as hard. Not going to be 2-KOing every single Pokemon in meta like it's used to. But very solid speed stat, very solid bulk, and strong spammable stab attacks is obviously great for it.
Yeah. The next pick is going to be Kartana. I believe Alteriomotus, aka Ian, also had Celesteela in mind, but Kartana is a great pick to settle with. Ian obviously would know that based on his performance in season 4. But Mega Medicham has like a 181 base attack. It's just super powerful.
Yeah, it's definitely the definition of one trick though. It's only gonna be offensive. It cannot run any other set other than Swords Dance or Scarf. So it's very predictable in that sense.
Yeah.
So next up is Tapu Koko. Once again, very versatile electric type. Definitely a lot better offensively, but it's a fantastic pivot regardless.
Yeah, Tapu Koko is a great one. It has a really good, or a pretty good speed set, and you can run it both special and physical, which is really good in certain situations. But
yeah, with a lot of team support too, with Taunt and this gen Defog. Roost can keep it around for a while. Next up is Megalophony. Another pretty straightforward Pokemon here, just clicks high jump, kick and return, but has a surprisingly large amount of different options that it can run too. It can run Encore, it can run Baton Pass for Momentum, etc.
Yeah. A Megalophony is a really good mon, and HUD showed it in the season earlier. Sorry, I'm making my pick.
Heatran is a pretty interesting first round pick in my opinion. It's obviously very good, versatile Pokemon once again, but it does have a lot more obvious exploitable weaknesses. 4 times weakness to ground and no reliable recovery does make it somewhat easier to deal with in prep, if you know what you're expecting.
Yeah, this is actually that Heatran sniped me because I wasn't sure what I was going to get at 17th pick, but Heatran is a really good mon overall. The next pick we have is Mega Scissor. Mega Scissor has been shown to be a really good mon, especially by people like Raver in Season 1. And it just hits incredibly hard, and you can run it offensive or defense if you want to do that with like Roost. It's a good pivot with U-turn. You don't have to Mega Evolve in this league, so it's pretty good in terms of that.
Yeah. So Medicham next. Obviously, huge power is huge. Like massive attack, the strongest of all the megas that are allowed here. It isn't as bulky as Mega Kangaskhan, so it's not as good in that sense, but it's definitely going to be picking up a lot more Okos. And also it's just got really good coverage with the elemental punches. It's got priority in both Fake Out and Bullet Punch.
Yeah, and we're going really fast here. Now we have Garchomp.
Yeah. Garchomp gives you that ground and dragon typing, which is obviously really nice. Boxes to check, it gives you rocks. It's very bulky, very powerful. Not quite as good this gen as it has been in the past, but it's still a very solid pick overall.
Yeah, and I would commentate about that, but now we have Jirachi. Jirachi is a really great mon. It has a good typing in Steel and Psychic. And again, it's just a great versatile mon. It can be offensive or defensive, special or physical, kind of however you want to run it. It also can set rocks, so it can do almost anything you want it to do.
Yeah, it gives you that wish support. It's very annoying to deal with. The Scarf Iron Head set, there's no amount of outplaying that can stop you from getting flinched down 10 times. But usually that's not what's happening. Next up is Weavile. This is very strong Pursuit Trapper. Clicks ice moves a lot to deal with the prevalent dragons. It's very solid, doesn't take too much thought to use. You just kind of click knock off on things and get rid of their item or get some kills. Very threatening Pokemon.
Yeah, whenever Weavile comes out, something's going to take a pretty big hit. Unless you have one of its few checks. But,
and even then, like, you can usually play around those fairly well.
Yeah. And coming out here for Grant is Scolipede. Scolipede is obviously great for its ability and speed boost. It can pass that in this league, I'm pretty sure. Yeah, it can, but it can only pass speed, nothing else.
Correct.
And a sub.
And yeah, it can also set up with Swords Dance, which makes it very threatening, and it can also it's a good hazard setter as well. So yeah.
Yeah, it offers a lot for offense in so many different ways. It's just threatening sweeper, sets up hazards, and speed passes. Anyway, we've got Volcanion here. Very hard Pokemon to switch into. Steam Eruption is a big threat to deal with that burn chance. Not as good this gen as it was last gen, but it is also very bulky. It's a very nice fairy resist to add to a team, but that Rock's weakness is limiting its effectiveness, unfortunately, a bit.
Yeah, Volcanion is... I haven't seen it used a whole lot lately, but it hits very powerful with Specs or Scarfed. It's going to be killing something in the game. And next up for me is Conk. It's an interesting round 1 pick, but I was kind of sniped by Heatran, and Conk was next on my board. And now that I have a mon in mind that I want, that probably is more worthy of a first round pick, it's too late. But I really like Conk. It's really great. It just hits incredibly hard, as Cody used it at the end of season 4. Has priority, knockoff, other things that you would want in a physical thing.
Now, originally I also wanted Conk. I was going to draft that next round, but instead I got Latios. Very very strong dragon type. It's got some rather strong natural bulk. It can take water hits well. It can take fair few hits well and just drop some devastating Draco hits or mixed T-Bolt, Ice Beam kind of stuff. Set up Calm Minds, Dragon Dances even. Just a very well-rounded Pokemon.
Yeah, and already we have Zygarde 50% coming out. Another hard hitter on the physical side. Usually in the first round or second round, maybe in drafts. It's a great setup sweeper. I can't talk. With Dragon Dance, Coil, can also hit those fairies that it doesn't like with a Sludge Wave. So overall, Zygarde 50% is just a good mon and a good pick.
Yeah, even with only one move that it needs, being 1000 Arrows, very versatile. Anyway, next up we've got Suicune, very bulky water type, very difficult to take down all the time. Doesn't have reliable recovery, which is a pain, but Rest Talk is such a threat on this. It sets up Calm Minds, it PP stalls with pressure. Very annoying Pokemon to deal with at times, especially if you don't have that strong electric type on your team.
Yeah, and now, Suicune, oh wow, and already into the next one we have Deoxys Speed. Sorry, I got sidetracked for a second. Deoxys Speed was I believe, first round pick in season 4, due to the fact that it was its first season being brought into the league, being unbanned. The Crispy Panda, obviously one of the top coaches in the ASL last season. Hopefully he can use it well. It's an incredible mon. It can be both physical and special, and it also can set up hazards. It's just overall pretty good.
Next up is Skarmory, and Demaster seems to really like this Pokemon from what I've seen of him. It's definitely only really going to be running defensive. You can run Swords Dance Weak Armor, but not really. Sets up Stealth Rock and Spikes and just soaks up those hits on both sides so well. Such a reliable wall dealing with fairy types primarily, but also most all physical attackers and psychic types, etc. Very good. Would probably like to see a Clefable or something pairing up with this.
Yeah, and now we have Hawlucha, a very good physical hitter. Has a nice typing in fire. I said fire. It's all good. It's all good. Fighting. Obviously with its ability Unburden, it makes it a very threatening sweeper with a berry. It also gets access to Swords Dance, putting Swords Dance on it with Unburden and like maybe like a Z move that's gonna put in some work.
Yeah, interesting to see it being drafted before Tapu is though. Next
Yeah.
up, Landorus T, and this is one of my favorite Pokemon. It's super bulky pivot with Intimidate. It's great typing with Ground Flying. It offers a fair few immunities and very threatening offensive set. I would say the Dual Dance, Rock Polish Swords Dance set is one of the most threatening sweepers in the format. And then it's just such a reliable stealth rocker, comes in on so many physical Pokemon and just pretty much invalidates them, honestly. It's just such a strong Pokemon, and even though you can just prep HP Ice to deal with it somewhat, it's not really taking it down too much. You need to have a pretty high special attack stat to really take it out.
Yeah, and next we have Mega Charizard X, a powerful Mega, one of the most powerful in the game. Mega Charizard X is very threatening, especially just if it sets up a Dragon Dance, then you're in a pretty tough spot. It's going to hit something hard and or just sweep you. It is a little bit weak to rocks, but hopefully Static can patch that up. Yeah, it also... Oh wait, yeah.
Yeah, it's pretty much only going to be setting up, but it can run defensive. Excadrill, that's very good ground and steel type. You're probably going to see some sand coming out too, because most people seem to think that Excadrill is only viable with sand. But I definitely think it's a very good mon in its own merit. Very good attack stat, very good with Scarf. It's got some surprisingly good defenses if you want to run it as a nice defensive fairy switch in. Sets up rocks and spins them away if you want it to. Also a rather prominent suicide lead on offense if you want to run it that way, but you'll mostly be seeing like Scarf and Sand.
Yeah, Excadrill can be good anyway, or either way. But next pick we have Cobalion for Cody. He does get the Cobalion. Well, I think we all are starting to know that he really likes this mon and was able to get it. But Cobalion is a great pick. It's interesting for round 1. Maybe he could have saved it for round 2 at his pick, but it's a great. It can set up. It can be sort of defensive. It has rocks. We saw Ian use it with that rock polish, or I think it was rock polish or whatever it gets.
Yeah.
Sweep, getting the 6-0.
Another fighting type coming up with Breloom. Would say interesting first round pick again, but this is obviously 28 man, so it makes more sense. Can set up some sleeps pretty well, and has some good priority uses, Mach Punch, etc. It's Swords Dance. It can also run rather bulky with Poison Heal Toxicorp, so that's also great.
Yeah, Breloom can just be really annoying to face with Spore, but it's a really powerful mon. If it's able to hit all those Bullet Seeds, then you're in a pretty rough spot. If it chooses to go Bullet Seed, just depends. And we do have Metagross as a second pick for the Miami Heat train. Metagross is a very good mon. It's an interesting pick for him to go now, but he doesn't have a pick for another like 54 people, I think, if my math is correct. So he's gonna have to take what he wants rather than maybe something that's too good. And Metagross is a good mon. It gets rocks, I think. Yeah, it does.
Yeah.
And next pick.
Next pick is Clefable. That synergizes very well with his Cobalion, gives him his Fairy and his Steel. It sets up rocks. It's a fantastic defensive Pokemon, but it also has a rather strong offensive pressure with Calm Mind. You can't really just leave it be and let it soak up hits. You do have to acknowledge it as a threat. You can't just switch around it like that. It's very versatile. It's got some surprisingly good coverage.
Yeah, with like Fire Blast for those steel types, and its abilities are very good too. But next out we have the somewhat expected pick of Tyranitar for the Mississippi Mudsdales. That's hard to say. Second tier A pick, so that is obviously going to give Excadrill some sand and some more rocks. But Excadrill is also a pretty threatening sweeper with Dragon Dance. It also is a pretty good wall on the special or physical side. So overall, Tyranitar is a pretty good pick for the Mudsdales.
Yeah, definitely. Next up is Ferrothorn, and this once again synergizes rather well with Mega Charizard. He's got his Dragon and his Steel, he's also got his Fire and his Grass. That's 2 of 3 Pokemon for 2 cores. Something like a Primarina or a Tapu Fini could come out and give him that Holy Trinity. It's like they synergize very well defensively. For one, if you want to run the Mega Charizard X defensively, which it's very good at. It sets up hazards and like paralyzes anything that's threatening it. Wow, that went fast.
And Mandibuzz, Mandibuzz is going to come out here for the Randolph Rotoms. Mandibuzz is an interesting pick, but again, with all these people, you're going to have to get what you think you need. And Mandibuzz is a really good physical wall. It can be really bulky. It gets Taunt. It can obviously gets Roost. And Foul Play can be really annoying. Hits very hard with that, actually. You'd be surprised. And next pick.
Yeah, so here's his Tapu. There's the seed that the Hawlucha wanted to set up the Unburden. Very good synergy between these two. I'd say Bulu is probably Hawlucha's second best partner of the Tapus. Deals with a lot of the bulk that's going to be annoying Hawlucha, although they are both troubled by some Pokemon like Skarmory or Celesteela. Bulu's definitely very draft specific. It's very polarizing. You've got to draft kind of specific stuff or prep very specifically around it on your team, but very solid Pokemon anyway.
Yeah, and Demaster is going to go ahead and take Infernape. Infernape is a really good mon. Honestly, I'm kind of surprised to see it drop this far, just compared to some other picks that have already been taken. But Infernape is just really good. You can run it physical or special if you want. It gets rocks. I think it gets Will-O-Wisp. It can set up with Nasty Plot. Scarf or Band is really good on Infernape, and it has a very good move pool to cover everything.
Next up is Mega Diancie. Very powerful Pokemon, especially in this format where you can actually use the regular Pokemon, so you can use it defensively if you want to, but obviously it's a very big threat offensively. It's going to be spamming that Moonblast. It's got great coverage in Earth Power, Diamond Storm, and it can also set up pretty effectively with Rock Polish or Calm Mind to sweep through teams. So very competent Wall Breaker, Sweeper, and regular form is rather strong defensively as a flying check, for example.
Yeah, and the next pick we have here for Milan Amsterdam Alakazam is going to be Alolan Ninetales. Alolan Ninetales is a good pick. It's obviously good for its Aurora Veil in the snow, but it also can set up. It has Nasty Plot, and it has a decent move pool. But honestly, sometimes Moonblast and like Blizzard and Freeze Dry is all you're gonna need.
Yeah, so next up from Matt is Florges. Once again, he's got his Dragon and his Fairy. Florges is super bulky with the Wish support to help Zygarde. It's fantastic for it because Zygarde is also a very bulky Pokemon, but it doesn't have that reliable recovery. So this Florges is definitely going to keep him in the fight for longer, maybe let him take in some hits and act a bit more as a defensive Pokemon. It's also rather good in its own right. It's got an insane Spadef, and it's also got pretty decent special attack with Calm Mind if you want to run it that way. I'll just talk about my own pick. So I've got Muck Alolan form here. This is mostly for my synergizing with my next pick more so, but it definitely helps the Latios. It suit traps like those ghost types that might be wanting to threaten me out, but it also takes away something that's going to be threatening my Latios a lot, which is definitely a very good thing to be doing in draft. If you can do that, take away the threats that you don't want to face.
Yep, and coming in for me, I have Victini for one of Hutch's signature mons. I'm really honestly surprised that it lasted this long, but I got sniped with Heatran and I was pretty excited to get Victini. Victini is just a great mon. It can be run physical or special very well, and it just has a really good move pool. You can see it run with Trick Room like Hutch did. It has base 100 stats all around, so it can be used defensive if you even want to do it like that too.
So next up is Donphan. Donphan Volcanion is very good together. Donphan's going to be rapid spinning those rocks that we were mentioning before was a problem for it, so Volcanion's going to be getting a lot more switches in. Donphan's also going to be setting up the rocks for it, which means like breaking sashes and just making it much harder to switch into Volcanion. Also can somewhat deal with some of the things that might be threatening it out a little bit at least, but it's mostly going to be that defensive switch in for things. It's going to come in on the electric attacks and whatnot.
And speaking of electric attacks, we have Tapu Fini, who is weak to that.
Brilliant segue.
Yeah. Tapu Fini is a great mon, honestly. Could have gone earlier if you think about it. It is just really bulky. You can run defensive or offensive with Calm Mind. We've seen Marin use it well in the regular season, I believe. It has a pretty good move pool. It has haze. It does have those hazards, or not hazards, statuses. Yeah, it does have defog too, but it does have those statuses. But obviously with Missy terrain, that's not gonna.
Synergy between Scully and Vinny though. But anyway, we've got Mega Delayed coming up, and this is just like two big threats. I don't think they synergize particularly well necessarily, but Weavile can like deal with some of the flying types that want to threaten the Gallade, I suppose. But other than that, they're just kind of two threats. I'd like to see where else this comes through, but you know, Gallade very strong with Sword Stance. It's got the auto speed boost now, which is going to make it more threatening, especially with strong coverage. But it does have 4 move slot syndrome.
Yeah. And next for the Utah Hoots, we're going to have Mega Gardevoir coming out, completing the second part of the Fairy Dragon Steel core. Mega Gardevoir is a good mon, as it was used in the earlier ASL seasons by people like Ian. It's really good. You can set up sub. The traceability is nice before it mega evolves, just to get like some shenanigans going on. But Hyper Voice, Psychic, Calm Mind. I mean, if you set up a Calm Mind, it's not gonna have much switch-ins.
So Pelipper is a very interesting choice here. Obviously, Pelipper's best known for Rain. I'm not sure how much Rain is going to be really helping Garchomp, honestly. I definitely don't think Brad's focusing on Rain. Obviously, he wants to try to have some versatility there, but going for Rain as a Pokemon, as Pelipper isn't really that good without it, is definitely an interesting choice here. I'll be interested to see what his next picks are.
Yeah. Yeah, it's always like that for the Rain teams. But we have Volcarona coming out for the Houston Hoobas. I kind of like this pick. Volcarona is a pretty good mon. It can obviously just set up a Quiver Dance and wreck your teams. Flame Body can be annoying in some circumstances. Definitely not cost me the game last season. Anyways, Volcarona is it's a really good mon. It has a pretty good move pool, like Giga Drain for those water types, and if you run it like Specs or something, it's going to be hitting incredibly hard.
Yeah, so next up is Keldeo, and Keldeo Mega Scizor. Fantastic offensive synergy. Mega Scizor is definitely threatening and killing everything that Keldeo is having troubles with. It's getting rid of those grass types, getting rid of those psychic types. It's not getting rid of the flying types, but flying types are not switching into Scalds and Hydro Pumps from this thing. This thing's also definitely going to be helping weaken things for the Mega Scizor, get rid of the fire types that are threatening it, and just chipping everything down for bullet punch sweeps. They also synergize very well defensively.
That is true. We have Kuma-O coming out for the New England Patriots. Kuma-O getting a nerf-ish in the new Sun Ultra Moon. And a lot of people are becoming more aware of it and wanting to use it more. And as you see here, Kuma-O is coming out. It also has rocks. It can You can run it defensive, but it also just setting up with it, it's very good. It has good coverage with Poison Jab. So overall, just a pretty good pick that I think has been overlooked for a while. Or underlooked. Or overlooked.
Yeah, so
Wait.
overlooked was right. We've got Starmie coming up next. It's nice, especially offensive Pokemon. Gives you the water type. Synergizes pretty well with Lopunny, I'd say. Lopunny doesn't really need that much support, I don't think, but definitely having the spin and just some nice special moves to break down those physical walls is nice to have. Just like an all-round good pick. It can be run pretty defensively with the cover to soak up some fighting type hits and whatnot.
Yep, and for Hutch, we have Mega Pinsir, a returning pick of his. He did pick it. Shoot, when did he have it? Season 3? I think he had it? Yeah. And it put in a lot of work, and I'm honestly pretty excited to see him use it again this season. But Mega Scissor is just very powerful. Even without a Sword Dance up, it hits like a truck. And with Aerial 8, it can use Return. Quick Attack is very nice. It has a pretty good move pool. It gets things like Earthquake, and it was either Superpower or Close Combat, I forget which. Yeah.
Yeah, so next up is Togekiss. Very threatening fairy type Pokemon. It's got fantastic defense. It has wish support. Obviously it's best known for using Thunder Wave and then killing it with Air Slash 10 times in a row. And just infuriating everyone who has to fight it unless they get somewhat lucky, I guess. But yeah, definitely very solid all around versatile pick.
And Tornadus T comes out for Country Boy Cameron and the top tier Tornadus. I do sort of like this pick, just because I do. I forgot what I was gonna say. I had Tornadus T last season and it did okay. But Tornadus T is a really powerful mon. It can it has a pretty good move pool. Honestly, if you just put Life Orb Hurricane on it, it's gonna hit really hard. Has good coverage with like Heat Wave, Sludge Wave. And it's a good pivot with U-turn. You can also run bulk up sets, like acrobatics, those kind of things. And yeah.
Yeah. So next up is Reuniclus, fantastic bulky psychic type. Very threatening with Calm Mind. It could be very good with Trick Room. Obviously, it's just like psychic typing is very solid in this format, and Brad will definitely attest to this Pokemon being fantastic. Not sure how well it synergizes with Manaphy yet, but we'll see how it goes with further down the draft. I would like to see some more of his like really core types like Fairies, Dragon Steels, and Grounds being filled out though.
Yep, and coming out for the Marlboro Magnetons, we have Blacephalon, a new addition with Ultra Sun, Ultra Moon. And this is an interesting pick. We haven't seen it used a lot in draft leagues. We know this thing hits very powerful with a very good special attack stat. And I don't know a whole lot to say about this, but it does help him complete his Fairy Dragon. I mean, you know what? Fire, Water, Grass Core. But anyways.
Next up is Mega Manectric, another fantastic electric pivot with Intimidate. Rivals Tapu Koko, I'd say, but without the fairy typing might be a little bit worse. But you know, Thunderbolt, Volt Switch, Overheat, and Hidden Power of your choosing is pretty much all you're going to see from this thing. It's not the hardest Pokemon to predict what it'll bring, but it's definitely hard to predict around what it'll actually use. It's got a lot of 50-50s that it forces, and just, you know, forces the switches, gets momentum for the team. It's very handy, and I don't think it's necessarily the best for Celestial, but it's not the worst either.
Yep, and to close out the second round, we have Roserade coming in for Keister and the Phoenix Flygons. They did attempt to pick Mega Venusaur first, and that does make sense. Besides the fact that it was taken, it would be a great fit. But Roserade is a great fit as well. It can set up hazards with like Toxic Spikes. I don't even know that much about Roserade. Jeez.
I'm a big fan of it personally. It's got super strong stab attacks and sets up the hazards. It's probably the best Koko answer in my opinion too, aside from Brave Bird, and obviously Mega Venusaur is better, but that's beside the point.
Yep, and it looks like we are stuck on Roserade for the time being, just waiting for...
So let's just talk a bit more about Roserade. Base 90 speed is quite nice for it. It's not like the best, but you can run a Scarf with it and get some surprise kills from outspeeding. Makes it for a fantastic water check, so that's always nice to see on the draft. You know, sets up T-Spikes can be really annoying with Huron Black boosting up all that damage. Definitely going to be hard to deal with. We do have our next pick, but it's not on stream. There it is. Diggersby. You talk about Diggersby.
Diggersby is an incredibly hard-hitting mon. I forget its exact attack stat, but it hits incredibly hard, as I already said. If you get an agility up with like Life Orb or, you know, whatever item you desire, it can sweep teams. Honestly, sometimes Return an Earthquake is all you need. And
another little known thing is it gets spikes, and with all the switches that it forces, you can get up those spikes pretty easily. Next up is Azumarill, Diggersby's little brother. Azumarill is probably a stronger pick than Diggersby, bit less attack technically, but water typing is much better priority wise with Aquajet. And it can run bulky because of its typing, especially considering it can now run Whirlpool Perish Song to trap some annoying things for the team. So you know that like whatever ground types that's annoying Mega Manectric, that's trapped, that's dead. It's going to be very nice for the team to do that, and also, you know, Belly Drum Aquajet Sweep is its mainstay.
Yeah. We've seen that used time and time again with the Belly Drum. But the next pick, it's a really good pick. We have Milotic for the Marlboro Magnetons every time. It's going to complete their Fire, Water, Grass core, and it's really just an overall really great defensive mon. It has some pretty neat abilities in like competitive and Marvel scale, and its other ability, I don't remember it. But yeah, I can just really, yeah, that's what I said.
Q-Charm.
Oh, Q-Charm,
whatever.
Yeah. Irrelevant.
But yeah, it just sits in and takes hits and recovers, so it's gonna be really annoying for whoever.
The opposite of taking hits and recovering is Thunderous T with a massive 145 special attack. Nothing's taking hits from this comfortably. Like, there's a few things, but it's got so much coverage as well. It's just very difficult to wall this thing. It sets up a nasty plot, it hits you with a Z move and crits your Jirachi, and it's just done from there. It's obviously very strong Pokemon to be getting round 3. Fantastic electric type, especially with a 101 speed to outspeed some stuff there. Often runs Dual Dance with Thunderbolt and Power Ice to boost its speed, but you know, it usually doesn't need to.
Yeah, and next we have Road and Wash coming out for Country Boy Cameron. It is a pretty good physical wall. It can just come in and take those hits. It has Will-O-Wisp and Pain Split for that recovery. It also has a good pivot and Volt Switch, and can hit pretty hard with Hydro Pump if you want to run like Specs or that kind of stuff. It also does get Trick, so that can be nice in some instances, but it's probably one of the best Rotoms out there.
Yeah, I definitely agree. Next up is Galvantula. This is going to be really problematic to deal with. Now he's got webs, which means that Togekiss is going to be outspeeding more and flinching more, and Kartana does not need a Scarf or Timid Speed Boost to be sweeping through things. It's going to be a lot harder to check both of those Pokemon with this. Not to mention, of course, it is a very strong Pokemon in its own right. It's not like the best pivot, but it definitely can Volt Switch around, threaten things, and get in his other threats. So, very strong pick here. Big fan of the offensive cores that he's building up.
Yeah, and Terrakion for Hutch. Hutch is just packing the offense.
Remember when Hutch told me to dial down the offense last time?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Then you went 12-1, and I figured I'd try it out.
Fair enough.
And yep, the total offensive team is going to take Terrakion. It's a good setup sweeper, great move pool with Swords Dance, and Does it get rock polish? I'm not sure.
Yes.
Yeah, I thought so. It also can set up rocks if you desire to, but it's just a really hard hitter.
Yeah, it's going to be very difficult to wall this team. Here's the next Pokemon. Another very difficult to wall Pokemon is Hydreigon. This has had a surprisingly poor performance until last season, where Hutch used it quite well. It's a fantastic wall breaker, especially with Taunt. It just has so much good coverage and it's really strong. Hard to kill because it's got surprisingly strong defenses. You know, fairy types will take it out, but otherwise it can just kind of sit there and roost and spam Dark Pulse or Draco Meteor, or it can run Scarf, Specs, Life Orb, whatever you want.
Yep, and we have Mimikyu coming out for the New England Patriots. It's a very good, I say this every time, don't I? It's a good one. But, yeah, you can just set up a Swords Dance behind its ability, where basically it's a free substitute, and you're going to be hitting very hard with things like Play Rough, Shadow, Claw Shadow, Sneak, Wood Hammer, but it is somewhat of a one-trick with that Swords Dance. Maybe running
I
like...
disagree with that, personally, but it's also very strong as a Trick Room setter or setter, like status opponents. I'd say it's probably one of the best blanket checks to things on offense. Anyway, Thunderous Eye, another fantastic electric type going this late. Very similar to Thunderous T, but it is a bit faster and a bit weaker. It doesn't need to run that agility in any matchup really. It can just set up Nasty Plot and run 3 attacks. Or it can run 4 attacks and just be completely unwallable. There's no real switch in because it has the coverage to deal with every single Pokemon, and it can Nasty Plot up and break through most things. It's very hard to deal with if it comes in for free, but it's also rather easy to not let it in too.
Yep, and we do have Raikou here for the Houston Hoopas. Raikou is a nice special attacking mon. You see it run Spec, Scarf, Calm Mind with a pretty decent move pool, like things like Thunderbolt, Hidden Powers, Aura Sphere, Extra Sensory, those kinds of things. And it's a good pivot with Volt Switch as well, so yeah.
To no one's surprise, Anderson gets Mega Swampert, one of the best rain abusers to go with Pelipper. I don't know if it synergizes super well with Garchomp, but it's not like, you know, 2 ground types isn't bad, but it's also a bit type redundant in a 9-mon format isn't necessarily the best idea, I don't think. You know, it means that you're probably going to be missing out on a few types that are also equally important, but obviously it's going to be very difficult to deal with a Mega Swampert in rain. It's very powerful, but Mega Swampert and Garchomp are kind of checked by similar Pokemon like Skarmory and stuff. But at the same time, that could be helpful in killing each other's checks.
Yeah, that will be interesting for the season. And now we have Mr. Dragonite himself coming out for the Utah Hoots. Dragonite, with its ability, lets it set up basically a free Dragon Dance, or just take hits. Dragon Dance, Dragonite is very good. You can also run it choiced. It does have Roost, and I believe it does get some status moves, so you can possibly even run a defensive. As we've seen, excellent name. You had it. You had it in the last season, so you'd probably know.
Roost Multiscale is just a worse Lugia in that sense. Anyway, Shadow once again drafting more offense. Very big fan of Gengar, but once again, it's like not necessarily the best to be drafting all these things that are kind of hitting similar Pokemon. You know, Dark Ghost fighting is a pretty solid core and all, but I don't think it's necessarily the best. Gengar, on the other hand, is like, you know, very strong Pokemon, 130 special attack. It's also a pretty good Store Breaker with like Taunt, Disable, Sub, etc. Solid, but I don't think it synergizes super well.
Yep, and coming in for Grand, we have Mew. Mew is just, it's Mew. It's very versatile, obviously. Basically gets most of the moves in the game. It does get rocks, hazards. It can heal, it can status things, it can hit hard. I mean, it can really just do anything you want it to do. It's Mew, and it does synergize pretty well with his team so far.
Yeah, definitely the most versatile Pokemon out there. He's not taking full advantage of the speed boosting, I don't think. Anyway, next up is Latias. I'm a big fan of Latias for this team. For one, it gets rid of one of Volcanian's strongest checks. And for two, it's just like, you know, a very good versatile Pokemon. I'm kind of surprised to see it go this late. It's, obviously, offensively, it's going to be spamming those Dracos, or it's going to be setting up Calm Minds and being impossible to kill. It's got Healing Wish support to keep all of this Pokemon alive. It's got the Bolt Beam coverage. It's got Tech Earthquake, I'm pretty sure, although that might just be Latios.
Yeah, Latios is a very good one. And going on to my pick, I wanted to use this for a while, and I decided to take it in the off season rather than another, like the actual regular season, because I wanted to try it out. But it is Mega Pidgeot, and this thing hits like a truck. I didn't realize it until I started using it on Showdown, but it hits very hard. It has U-turn, it has a pretty good move pool. It is a little weak to rocks, but hopefully I'll be able to work around that for my team. I wasn't originally planning on getting a Victini, so hopefully I can patch that problem for the off season.
So next up, I get Sylveon. I feel Sylveon synergizes very well with Muck. Obviously, it gives Wish support to the Muck, which helps a lot, especially for the Assault Vest set. It also is, once again, I've got Muck to get rid of Sylveon's counter. So Sylveon sets up Calm Minds as well to kill things with Hyper Voice, doing a lot of damage, and most importantly, just soaks up hits and Wish passes, really.
Yeah, Sylveon is it's good. Physical. I didn't say physical, I meant to say special word. I'm out of it this morning.
Physical and special wall,
Yeah, that's what I was meant. Yep. Yeah, physical and special wall. Yep. And going out for the Washington Red Skitty, we have Mega Gyarados. And honestly, I think this is a pretty good pick. It's going into the third round, and we have the end of the third round, I should say. And a lot of mons are getting taken. It has Intimidate with its normal form, which is very nice, and you can Mega Evolve and just set up a Dragon Dance and kill some things. It's also a good thing for like mind games and stuff, since in this league you don't have to Mega Evolve first turn, so it's kind of like for moves like fighting moves, bug moves, it's kind of like 50-50 whether you're gonna Mega Evolve or not.
Flying, resisting, fighting is great, and then obviously you can't hit it with ground move, and it's got enough bulk to take an electric hit after Mega Evolving, so it definitely does have those 50-50s. And it's more versatile than just setting up Dragon Dances, it's also got some nice bulk. Anyway, next up is Serperior. This is quite a solid Pokemon in Veil. You know, it's got some pretty solid bulk, and behind Veil it's got its Sub-Siege shenanigans. It sets up Leaf Storm with Contrary Boost pretty easily. Definitely very solid. Suicune also does a very good job of coming in on its counters. You know, stuff like Heatran, Skarmory, they don't really want to deal with Suicune.
Yep, and we now have Stack Attack coming out for the Crispy Panda. And Stack Attack is also a new addition for Ultra Sun and Ultra Moon. It's a very interesting mon. It just, a lot of times you can see it just set up a Trick Room and attempt to sweep from there. But it is also pretty good just as a normal attacking mon. It's also obviously as a pretty good, or not pretty good, it can be defensive too. It's kind of however you want to run it. Also, it's a pretty good move pool, and I think it gets rocks as well.
Yeah, so very good Pokemon, especially with Gyro Ball hitting hard. But next up is Shaman, another versatile Pokemon with those 100 base stats across the board. It gives him the Grass type to help with his core. And obviously, yeah, it's just got Serene Grey Seed Flares, really good for breaking through things with those harsh the death drops. It's got some strong coverage and also Leech Seed Stalls. Some very good water resist to help with the Infernape. It comes in on the electric hits that Skarmory doesn't want to take. Bit weak to fire, but it is what it is.
Oh, and I just dropped the thing that I was using to watch the stream, and we do have Mega Aggron here for the Chicago Conkelders. He's kind of just picking my team from last season, but Mega Aggron does cover the weaknesses of these mons pretty well, being things like poison, ice, all those things. But it's great. It can be offensive or defensive. It gets rocks. You can set up curse. It hits really hard with heavy slam, and overall just good.
Especially with grassy terrain, giving it that passive recovery and making it better against earthquakes. Catastas picked up Goodra. Quite a strong dragon type pick, honestly. It's got probably not the best of the options, but it's very bulky, especially on the Spadef side. It's got some really good coverage. The only thing that's really letting it down is that speed, and it's probably a bit weaker than the others, but it's still very difficult to deal with, difficult to kill. It's very strong as a pivot. It comes in on a lot of hits. It can run with rain, giving it hydration rests if it wants to. It can run Assault Vest, which it usually will, or just specs to hit hard with Draco. I do like it on this team. It's pretty pivot heavy so far with Landorus and Goodra. We'll have to see some maybe bit more offensive dedicated Pokemon, but it's definitely quite versatile team so far.
And a pick here for static, I do like this, is Nihilego. It can set up hazards with Toxic Spikes and Stealth Rocks. It has a very good special defense stat, but you can run it offensively too. Hits very hard with Power Gem and Sludge Wave. Scarf Nihilego is pretty good also. I've used it before. And with Beast Boost, it's going to be getting a good increase to whichever stat is the highest.
Yeah.
But, yeah.
So next up is Celebi. Celebi's quite nice here. He's gotten Heatar, which otherwise could Pursuit Trap the Celebi if it wanted to. But other than that, it's a strong pivot. It's gets in the Excadrill or the T-Tar quite well. It deals with the water types that are otherwise really frustrating for his team, and also is a Pokemon that would otherwise kind of check the Excadrill somewhat. Just come in and soak up the ground hits. It's definitely great synergy with this team. It covers the weaknesses well. It gives him rocks, it gives him a pivot, etc.
Yes, and speaking of that, we do have Necrozma, which is a very versatile mon. It can set up rocks, you can run an offensive or defensive. Calm Mind, Necrozma is very dangerous, gets Totemized. Does it get Sword Dance?
Yes, it does.
Yeah, it does.
Yeah, because its forms have that, so I thought it did. So it's a very setup heavy mon, but it's also good. It has recovery with Moonlight. It can really tank some hits if you run it right too. So I'm excited to see how Cody, who's a good coach, can use it this season, off season.
Yeah, so Zebstrika for Ubers gets Empoleon. It's a bit interesting to be getting double steel types, especially so early in the draft, but Empoleon's obviously very nice water type. It gives him Defog, one of the better defoggers in the tier, even though it doesn't have reliable recovery. Soaks up water hits really well. It's pretty good defensively, but I really don't see the synergy with this team, honestly. It's just not working to me. I don't he's got his grass water kind of filled out, but other than that, it's kind of iffy.
Yeah, it is a pretty interesting pick, and we are waiting for the next pick. But yeah, Empoleon is a good wall. I agree with you though. I'm not exactly sure how it fits on this team in terms
I see him
of
running into some issues in prep there as he finds everything's redundant. It's going to be an issue, I think, down the line, but it is off season. You can chill out a little bit.
Yeah, I definitely agree. And we have Entei for the Miami Heatran. I do like Entei. I I thought Darmanitan could have been a pretty good pick too. But Entei works also. I don't believe I've seen Entei picked in the ASL in a while. But it's a very good offensive mon. Another offensive presence for his team. Can be both physical or special. It has priority in E-speed. If you run it choice, it's going to be hitting very hard or outspeeding most things on the field. So Entei is a pretty good mon, and this is probably one of his better synergizing picks so far.
Yeah, I definitely agree with that. It's going to be taking some of those hits fairly decently. For him, it's obviously definitely good to be having double priority already this early, but finishing out your Firewater Grass Core and all doesn't mean that your team's all that well synergized. It still feels somewhat redundant, especially in the double steal. I'm not a big fan of this team yet, but maybe the tier B will patch it up a bit.
Yeah. And the next pick is in, and we have Porygon 2 for the London Lapras. Porygon 2 is a great EVLA user. It's just really tanky. It can tank hits and recover. It can set up Trick Room for things like the Clefable or Necrozma if it wants to, which will be interesting to see, but who knows.
Yeah.
It also gets like Toxic or Thunder Wave. Has some pretty good abilities in Trace Download and its other ability. But it hits hard. It has a pretty good move pool as well with Tri-Attack, Ice Beam, Thunderbolt, those kinds of things.
Mega Aerodactyl, that's definitely interesting. I was a big fan of his team thus far, but now he's just seeming a bit too heavy on the water weaks here. He does have the Celebi, but I'm not sure Mega Aerodactyl was the best choice here. It does give him a flying type, which is nice for, like, once again, the ground types. It's a good suicide lead with Stealth Rocks or just defogging. It hits hard and all, but, you know, it's just a bit much on the rocks. Rock isn't the best typing to begin with in this format, so I don't really understand why he went with Mega Aerodactyl here.
Yeah, I definitely can agree with that. I feel like if you want to use him on, just try to like draft a team around it that'll suit it better. But it'll be interesting to see how it works. I mean, it's a really good mon in general, though. It's fast, it hits hard. But I agree with you that
it's a panic pick, honestly.
Yeah.
You're up.
And the next pick, yep, I just forgot. The next pick is Gliscor for Intermelodic and Static. This team is looking pretty good so far, honestly. Gliscor is another rock setter. That's his third one so far. Can also remove them, which is nice. And Poison Heal is just a great thing for Gliscor, allowing it to basically have free leftovers. If you would say. It also can set up Swords Dances. It has decent move pool, things like Earthquake, Stone Edge. It also obviously has Roost, so it's going to be able to be ran offensively or defensively, depending on the matchup for Static.
Yeah, it's good to see so many options synergizing with the Charizard there. So next up, Catastas picked Cloyster, and we saw how big of a threat Cloyster was last season. It only really did work in 3 of the games, but boy did it do work in those 3 games. It picked up 2 6-0 sweeps and a 5-0 sweep. It was brought like, I think 6 weeks, and 3 of those weeks it did nothing. It's definitely really matchup specific, so if Katas gets the good matchups of Cloyster, it's going to be really big for this team, but if he doesn't, it's not going to be as useful. It obviously can set up spikes and spin away hazards, so it is good in that sense regardless.
Yeah, I definitely agree with that. And now we have Toxapex for the Chicago Conkelders. Toxapex is a tank. It setups hazards with Toxic Spikes. It has recovery. Baneful Bunker is obviously an interesting, somewhat like Protect move. It also has access to things like the Black Sludge for that extra health. But it synergizes pretty well with this team, I think, so far. He doesn't have a lot of special presence though, so I maybe for his tier Bs, that would be a good thing to think about.
Yeah, but he's definitely building really well around the Tapu Bulu. His defensive presence is really well supported by it. Anyway, next up is Zapdos, and I am honestly flabbergasted that this made it to round 4. It's so bulky, it's such a difficult Pokemon to take down. Synergizes, like Skarmory Zapdos is like a bit redundant, but not really, because they don't actually share any weaknesses, it's just they kind of do similar roles. But Zapdos has also got a really nice attack stat, special attack stat, good coverage in, you know, Heat Wave, Discharge, and Hidden Power Ice. So even as a defensive Pokemon, it's going to be doing some work offensively. It's pretty hard to switch into.
Yeah, Zapdos is a pretty like famous-ish mon in the league. People like Brad and other people really like Zapdos, and it has done well in the past. But now we have Araquanid, one of the best new mons for this generation with Ultra Sun, Ultra Moon, getting access to sticky webs. But otherwise, it's still great. You can run it Assault Vest. It hits very hard with Water Bubble Liquidation. Like, I've seen it used, and it doesn't have very much switch-ins. And it also gets Bleach Life for the extra health. And Lunge if you even want to lower the other person's attack. It's overall a very interesting mon, and gonna look forward to seeing him use it.
Yeah. So next up is Jolteon. Very fast electric type, very good pivot. It's got Shadow Ball and Signal Beam for coverage, which isn't necessarily the best, but it does have a fair few options outside of that. You can run Quick Feet with Flame Orb to really beat those setup squeakers. It's just faster than almost everything else. But it's also got Wish support if it wants to. But it's mostly just going to be used to Volt Switch around into his threats like Superior. It's gonna... yeah, anyway. Lucario next.
Yeah, so we have Lucario coming out for the Washington Reds kitty, as excellent name said. I haven't seen it used a lot, but it can be run physical or special. It gets Nasty Plot and Swords Dance, I believe. I know it gets Vacuum Wave for priority, and it hits very hard with some stab moves like Flash Cannon and all those physical moves that it gets. And it does have a pretty good move pool, and I'm pretty excited to see him use it. This does complete his Fire... I say it wrong every time. Fairy Dragon Steel Core. So
yeah, it's also worth noting that it got Meteor Mash this gen, so it's definitely got some good steel coverage now. Anyway, I picked up Mienshao, and this was my original call going into it. It was Muck, Alolan, and Mienshao Conkeldurr. Now what this is going to do is it's going to allow me to Pursuit Trap all those ghost types that are going to be fucking up my fighting type coverage. It's also going to be able to have a nice switch into those fairy types and hit them with Poison Jab to really help get rid of it. Sylveon is also a pretty strong Mienshao check that I've taken off the board, as is Latios, so gives me a strong pivot to get into Latios that threatens out the steel types, or I can bring in Muck on the fairy types. I really like the synergy going into this so far.
Yeah, I definitely agree with that, and I'm going to take Vaporeon. I had a lot of bulky water types that I had in mind going into the draft, and I knew I wanted to take one as my last pick. I was originally going to plan on going Slowking, because I haven't used it before, and I've seen people use it well in the ASL. But I took Victini after I got sniped, so you can thank whoever took Heatran for you not getting Conk. But Vaporeon is really good.
Easy on that, honestly. Conk or Mienshao were both... it was a toss-up for me.
Yeah. But Vaporeon, I've used it in the past. I just really like it. It's good physical or special defense-wise, and Wish support is always very nice. Yes. And there's a pretty good special attack stat too.
So next up for Ghost is Linoone, and this is probably one of the most buffed Pokemon this gen. It's a real sleeper buff, honestly. It got Stumping Tantrum. Stumping Tantrum is a 75 base power ground move, which allows it to deal with so many of its otherwise guaranteed walls. It's got a fairly poor matchup in most games because it's going to be walled by whatever steel type they have, and they're gonna have a steel type because that's one of the most important aspects of a draft. But now it's actually able to deal with a lot of those Pokemon, so it has the coverage to take out pretty much all of its checks bar like Skarmory, Celesteela, Ferrothorn and stuff. But, you know, especially considering Celesteela and Ferrothorn don't have reliable recovery, you can definitely chip them down and prepare for an extreme speed sweep. So
yeah, but when those steel types are down, then, you know.
Yeah, Hutch, when those steel types are down.
Oh god. Oh my lord.
Yeah, and coming in for the Clang United and Grand, we have Mamoswine. Mamoswine is a great last pick for Tier A. We haven't seen it used as much lately in the ASL, but it's another rocker, stealth rocker, just to clarify, for the team. It also hits very hard and has a pretty good move pool. It also gets priority in Ice Shard, and yeah, it's just honestly, I think is a good pick for his team.
Yeah, it's very difficult to switch into as a Pokemon. It's mostly held back by its speed, which is patched up by Scolipede Speed Pass. It's good to see something actually abusing that now on his team. Now, Shadow has picked up Nidoqueen. Nidoqueen's quite good for his team. It gives him a bit of bulk there, and it also gives him actual hazard setters now. So now he can set up his T-Spikes and his Rocks and chip down the team to prepare for his double priority Weavile Gallade stuff, prepare for Scarfs or whatever else. Unfortunately, it is like 2 poisons and no ground resists yet, so he's definitely weak to like ground spam, he's weak to water spam. He doesn't have much to resist hits on the team. Even in a hyper offensive draft, you definitely want to have Pokemon that resist the hits so that you can like somewhat switch around and take some hits. You can't just bring a bunch of strong Pokemon if they're all dying to the same hit.
Yeah, definitely an interesting pick. I do like Nidoqueen in general, but I agree with what you're saying. Overall, you can see some pretty big weaknesses in the team.
Yeah, that's where I went different. That's where Hutch is going different. We're both, so far, with Hutch's draft, we've got Pokemon that can take the hits even though they are going to be almost exclusively offensive. They can like switch around, pivot around, and outplay some Pokemon to bring in some momentum. But currently, if you bring in Manaphy, something dies. Anyway, why don't you talk about Staraptor?
Yeah, I was just getting distracted by Suzy. So, for Suzy in the Utah Hoots, we do have his final pick in Staraptor. Staraptor, I really like it. I haven't seen it used a whole lot lately. I know I've seen Ian use it some in the past seasons, but it hits very hard. Banded Staraptor is going to have little switch-ins, and it has some good abilities in like Intimidate, and yeah, it is a good pivot with U-turn, but you're mainly going to see it used choiced, maybe Life Orb or something. Does it get Reckless?
Yes.
Yes.
Yeah, that was the other good one I was forgetting.
Yeah. It also gives him flying spam with Dragonite, which is pretty nice. Anyway, next up for Brad is Xurkitree. Xurkitree is very strong electric type. It's got insane special attack with Tail Glow especially. It's just such a threat. Definitely strong pick on the Rain team because it can also run Z Rain Dance, secondary status, get that +1 speed, accurate thunders, and set up Rain for the Swampert if it goes down. It's got very somewhat lackluster move pool offensively. Its coverage options are like Energy Ball, Dazzling Gleam, but it's very difficult
Signal
to switch
Beam.
into regardless.
And coming out for the Houston Hoopas, we have Kyurem, a very, very hard-hitting mon. I keep on saying very, but I'm being truthful here. Specs Kyurem has little to none switch-ins. It hits like a truck, and it also gets things like Roost, Sub-Roost I've seen, and it has a very good move pool. But overall, Kyurem is a good mon.
Yeah.
A good pick.
So coming in for Marin is Nidoking. I also really like this pick for him. It gives him a nice wall breaker to help with the Scizor. It definitely pressures things like the Skarmory, etc., as well as Thundurus for that. Gives him, more importantly, it gives him rocks and gives him an electric immunity. So yeah, it's definitely a strong pick here. Fantastic wall breaker. That's how you do an offensive team. It's got switching to stuff, but it's still primarily offensive.
Yeah, it's a pretty good last round pick for tier A. And speaking of amazing last round picks, we have the myth, the legend, Cresselia coming out here for the New England Patriots. Cresselia is amazing, honestly. It just tanks hits and then kills things. It's what it does. It has great recovery. It can status things. I think it has Trick Room. Yeah, it does.
Yeah.
It has Calm Mind. Calm Mind Crest is very annoying. You can run it defensively either way, and if you can't take a hit, just stick a berry on it or something.
I think it's a bit of a bad idea though. Just look at Heart. 1-3, drops it, goes 10-1.
Yeah.
So yeah, it's probably not the best idea if you want to look at it like that. Anyway, next up is Crobat. Crobat's a very good pick because Crobat is a fantastic Megalophony check. It's also just gives him defog, gives him a pivot to get in his Hydreigon and stuff. It's gives him some more bulk. It doesn't synergize super well with Starmie, but it synergizes fairly well with Hydreigon, switching into those fairy hits. And Hydreigon, he's looking a bit Ice Weak. Bulk Beam really does mess him up, but with a Megalophony, not many Pokemon are getting much of a chance to be clicking that Bulk Beam because it just hits so hard.
Yeah, I definitely agree with that. Bolt Beam does look pretty scary against his team. But coming in for Hutch, we have a great pick. We have Tangrowth, a great mon both offensively and defensively. It can really just fit whatever hole Hutch needs to patch up for his team. It gets things like Knockoff to help in that regards, and it has a good move pool. It gets things like Earthquake and all those things. It's also run very well defensively with things like Assault Vest. It has Synthesis, Leech Seed, Toxic, all those kinds of things.
And just as an aside, you'll notice that he has Mega Pinsir. Susie has Dragonite and Staraptor. It's looking pretty difficult for Barbara's team to actually break through that Pokemon, as most of the flying types are on Team Susie. Anyway, coming in for Ian is a Gothitelle. So anything that was going to be dealing with Kartana is now going to get trapped by Gothitelle. This is looking pretty grim for people. Gothitelle trapping is a real issue. It got banned to Ubers. It's a lot easier to deal with in draft format, but it's going to force people to be running Shed Shells if they want to keep their walls alive. Not to say that walling Kartana is necessarily a super viable option, but it's definitely a very strong option for Ian to have on his draft, just to show, hey, I've got this here. Prep for it.
Yeah, and we have Crocodile coming out for Country Boy Cameron. Honestly, a pretty good pick in terms of being in the last round in Tier A, almost one of the last picks in the round. It has rocks, and you can run it both offensively or defensively, despite the opinion that from some people that it's mainly offensive. But it does hit incredibly hard if you stick a Life Orb or a Band on it. It's a pretty good move pool, and it does get knockoff, which is very nice as well.
Yeah, I definitely look forward to seeing Cam with this much better draft than last time. Anyway, JPB or Matt has picked up Landorus Eye, the second genie on his team, and honestly, once again, I'm pretty surprised to see this go so late. Very powerful special attacker. I've got to say, he's looking pretty set in the very powerful special attacker side. Everything hits so hard, especially. But it does give him rocks, which is very nice to have on that kind of team, and just, once again, amazing coverage, really strong.
Yeah, has Landorus T even gone yet?
Yes.
Oh, okay. Well, anyways, we have Heracross for the Marlboro Magnetons. A very good pick. I feel like he has one of the strongest teams in for the offseason at the moment. Heracross hits very hard with Flame Orb or whatever you want. It sets up with Sword Stance and has a pretty good move pool. Although sometimes all you need is Mega Horn close combat, and well, I guess that's every time. You need things like Mega Horn close combat and then just coverage. But if you're able to get Heracross in and for it to outspeed things, then it's gonna hit something very hard.
Yeah. So now we've got Bowling Braviary with the Dark Manitown pick. Very strong looking team right now. He's got one pivot into two fantastically strong Wall Breakers. Darmanitan's going to be dealing with some of the things that Azumarill was having trouble with just by hitting so hard. Like, they do have some common issues like bulky water types, but once again he's got a Mega Manectric for that. It's not really much of an issue offensively. He's got pretty much all of his bases covered. He's probably going to start drafting some bulk later into Tier B.
Yes, and we do have Slowbro here for the Phoenix Flygons. Great pick. Slowbro is a very good mon on the defensive side. It can tank those hits and basically get free health with Regenerator. And it also does have recovery. And it can set up Calm Mind. Calm Mind Slowbro is very hard to take down, and it does have a pretty good move pool as well. But it does fit his team pretty well, in my opinion. And it's gonna
synergizes fantastically with Roserade. Got the grass water part. He just needs a fire type now. Slowbro with Teeth Spikes is a real pain to deal with. It's going to be something that I definitely expect him to be running a fair bit. It's looking quite nice right now. It's got a good balance of bulk and offense. I'm a big fan so far.
Let's go ahead and start off Tier B. That's what I will do. Oh, that decides to load up. Go ahead.
Alright, so yeah, next up we've got Mega Absol. Mega Absol is pretty underrated Mega, I feel. Just from being Tier B, it's like got really strong dark moves. It's 165 attack, I believe, with just that knockoff Sucker Punch. It can set up a Sword Stance, but it usually won't be able to. But it's also got a pretty strong special move pool with like Flamethrower and Ice Beam, so a lot of those physical walls that think they can come in realistically can't do so. It does have some difficulties with priority because it's quite frail, but you know, other than that, it's like a really strong pick. It's probably a bit too weak for Tier A, but top tier Tier B pick for sure. Yeah,
definitely. I really like Mega Absol. It's fun to use. But now we have Slurpuff. Ghost picking up his second Belly Drum Sweeper. So Slurpuff also is going to be good, and I believe that completes. Oh wait, no, it doesn't complete his core. But yeah, Slurpuff is very dangerous Belly Drum in terms of that, but it also can be run special. As you guys may know, there's always that annoying special set for Slurpuff when you do like random battles, but it can be used that way pretty effectively. It also is somewhat decent effectively, like defensively. If you can get up maybe like a Calm Mind or so, it'll be able to take those hits pretty well.
So Muffin here is going with some more type redundancy with the Magneton. Pretty interesting. I see what he's going for though. He wants the Magneton so he can trap like the Skarmories and Celesteelers that are going to be stopping his extra stats. It gives him a strong special attacker, which he was quite desperately needing, but right now he's still got a fair few redundancies and some common weaknesses that he needs to start patching up with his remaining 4 hits. The electric type obviously is once again nice for pivoting with Celebi though, so I'll definitely give him that.
I'm going to take Zygarde 10%. I know that there are probably other mons that I could have taken that mainly just help in terms of hazard support, but I decided to go Zygarde 10% because it's very fun to use, just in my opinion, and it's a pretty good mon. You know, you can run it, you can run the Dragon Dance set, you can run banned or scarfed, it gets E-Speed. Basically everything that we said about Zygarde 50%, just a little worse. But
yeah, it definitely doesn't have the same levels of bulk, so it's not setting up quite as easily. But, you know, 1000 Arrows is a fantastic move for it. TCP picks up Hitmonlee. Hitmonlee is quite a strong fighting type Pokemon. With Unburden especially, it's gonna have that option of normal gem fake out to get its boosts up and then start spamming fighting type moves. He does have a bit of difficulty dealing with the ghost types right now. He doesn't really pressure them too hard, which is obviously something that you really need to deal with for Hitmonlee. But he does deal quite well with the fairy types that would otherwise be an issue with Stack Attacker.
Yeah, definitely agree with that. And we do have Flygon coming out here for the Chicago Conkelders. Flygon is a great pick in terms of hazard support. It's has a pretty good typing besides its 4 times weakness, and similar to the Zygardes, it just kind of can set up a Dragon Dance. You can run it banded or scarfed, like with the choices. It does get defog, as I basically said earlier. But it was a pretty good pick for his team.
Yeah. So next up is Jellicent, and Jellicent is really fantastic. It's a water type wall. It's like in Gen 5 it was the best Keldeo counter out there. Gen 6 too, honestly. It's just got that really nice mixed bulk. It can spam Scald, or if it wants Will-O-Wisp to get more reliable, Hex support with that to deal some nice damage, and you know, reliable recovery on your bulky water type is always really nice to have, especially with Water Absorb. It gives him a water immunity, but it is a bit redundant with the Mega Gyarados, gotta say. He's looking pretty weak to electric types, even with the Zygarde 50, because obviously you can power ices everywhere.
Yes, and we do have Honchkrow for the Zebstrika for Ubers and the Miami Heatran. I do like Honchkrow, but again, I'm not sure if it's worthy of a round or the first pick in Tier B. And again, I'm not sure exactly how it fits his team. He is lacking some defense, and you can see some weaknesses. But overall, Honchkrow is a great mon. It can set up Swords Dance. I think it has Roost. Yeah, it's a good Pursuit Trapper as well, and it does get priority in Sucker Punch.
Yeah, and coming up for Shadow is Dugtrio A. Once again, really not seeing a synergy around this team. It's definitely interesting. Dugtrio A is quite a good Pokemon. It's definitely been slept on. It's only 10 base speed slower than regular Dugtrio, and while it doesn't have the trapping, it really is kind of just like a budget X-Skill. It doesn't set up Sword Stance or Rapid Spin. It definitely doesn't have the same utility, but it's just like ground steel type. It's really strong, just offensively. It's once you get rid of its like walls, obviously there's like some pretty common counters to it, but you know, still very strong options.
Yeah, Hutch use it very well in Season 4, but we do have Mega Abomasnow. Yeah, we have Mega Abomasnow coming out here for the New England Patriots. It's a very interesting pick, and it does, wait, no it doesn't. Nope, does not complete his core. We did see Anderson use normal Abomasnow, or was it Mega? He had Abomasnow. I'm pretty sure it was normal.
I think it was Mega, actually.
Oh wait, no, it was Mega. I'm thinking of, okay, you know what?
Anyway.
Never mind. But yeah, Mega Abomasnow is a great pick. It can physical or special, sets up pretty well and does get priority in Ice Shard.
Yeah. So Zagreb Zangoose has picked up Meloetta. Meloetta's quite a nice Pokemon. It's got really strong coverage. It's a great normal psychic Pokemon. Just really nice Tier B Pokemon. Its Purette form isn't quite as good because every time you switch out you lose the form and you need to use Relic Socks to get it. But it definitely is an option that people need to consider when prepping. You can't just completely ignore it, otherwise you're going to get steamrolled by its high speed. But other than that, it's very versatile. It's got Assault Vest sets, it can set up Calm Minds, Vex, hitting really hard with normal spam. Just a solid Pokemon.
Yeah, and we do have Mega Houndoom coming in for the Phoenix Flygons. Pretty good Mega for Tier B. Hits very hard. And with a somewhat decent move pool, it does complete his Firewater Grass Core. And with this, if he does draft something like Torkoal, I mean, you know, it's not necessarily going to happen. But if he does get something with Sun or set up a sunny day, this thing is going to be very powerful. And it's just powerful in general. It's pretty fast and hits pretty hard. And has a decent move pool coverage.
Yeah, it honestly doesn't need that much because Dark is just such a strong typing.
Yeah.
Anyway, coming in for Gran is Dragalge, and Dragalge is probably the best Dragon type available in Tier B. It's very slow, but it hits super hard, especially with adaptability. Poison hits and Dragon hits being ×2 is really nice coverage, you know, with Fairy types usually being the primary switch into most Dragons. Doesn't deal super well with steals, but he does have a Mammoth to deal with a lot of those. So it's synergizing well, especially with Scolipede Speed Pass. It's looking pretty ground weak. He's definitely wanting to pick up immunity soon, but you know, it's definitely a super strong option for him.
Yeah, and we do have Ambipom here for the Marlboro Magnetons. Ambipom. What?
To the top.
Yeah, Ambipom is a very, very hard-hitting mon. If you put a band on it, it has little switch-ins. Does get U-turn, I think. I think it gets, maybe even gets Trick. Pretty sure it does. And it has a pretty good move coverage too. It gets things like Seed Bomb. Obviously, it gets Return. It gets Knockoff. And yeah, I'm excited to see him use it for Tier B. I let him take it from me because I was gonna get it.
Should have picked it first. Anyway, coming in next is Mismagius, and Mismagius is a really nice option here. It's one of my favorite ghost types. It's got a very nice special attack stat, gets Nasty Plot with 105 speed. It's going to be having a real chance of sweeping in a fair few games, with ghost typing being such a strong option. Its coverage is also pretty good. It does have some tech options like Thunderwave, Will-O-Wisp, Destiny Bond to really punish any switch-ins that think they're going to come in. You know, fairly versatile Pokemon for a Tier B. It's very good at its job, but with this kind of team, I feel like it might just be a bit outshined offensively. I found that last season, personally.
Yeah, we do have a Scavalier coming in for the Randolph Rotoms. It's a pretty interesting pick considering it's going 5th, but it's pretty, like, I haven't seen it a lot, honestly. Like, I don't know a whole lot about a Scavalier. I know that it's very slow, which is going to be a little tough, but it's a pretty good typing. It doesn't resist anything, or isn't weak to anything except for fire, which is 4 times weakness. And it does have a pretty good move pool, I believe, with like Iron Head, Mega Horn, Drill Run. Does it get knockoff?
Yes.
Yes.
Yeah, it does get knockoff. And those kinds of things. And yeah, now we have.
Yeah, it's got everything that Sizzle has, but Bullet Punch, really. So now Static has picked up Rabombi. Fantastic option here. He gives webs to his Charizard and Nihilego, and that's just like really nice to have. It's also another another setup sweeper with Quiver Dance. Gives him that special option with so many hazard. It's like definitely looking threatening, honestly. I could see him getting a fair few Quiver Sweeps going into this. Doesn't have any real bulk, so if it is setting up webs, it's probably going to die. But honestly, with Mega Charizard, it can get away with that.
And for the Totodile Hotspur and Just Pushes Buttons, he sniped me very hard, and now I'm depressed. But he took Whimsicott. Whimsicott is just a fantastic Tier B mon with Prankster. It can do all sorts of things with Prankster. Leech Seed Encore, Synthesis, Tailwind, all those things. I think it's Synthesis. It also does have, you know, decent special attack and hits things with Moonblast and Giga Drain just to get that health back. Sub Whimsicott is also a thing. But Whimsicott just fits his team pretty good. Not as good as it fit mine. But yeah, it was a good pick for Matt.
Yeah, sure. Frank the Defog is always a really nice option, and it's only just come up here. Obviously, the issue with that is that it can be blocked by dark types, but you know, other than that, very good option. Encore can stop a lot of sweeps from happening and stuff. So now we've got Klefki coming in. So Klefki is really nice here because it gives him spike support and it gives him thunder wave support. So obviously both of those options are going to be very nice for his strong but bits on the slow side wall breakers like Mega Medicham, Volcarona, and Curin. So, you know, once everything's thunder wave, what are you going to do against Mega Medicham? And Spike's up, going to break all those sashes, going to put everything in range of high jump kick. It's going to be very difficult to deal with. Also gives him some nice switch-ins to Dragon and like dark moves that would otherwise be a bit annoying for him to deal with. I definitely really like this pick.
Yeah, I definitely agree with you. And we have Virizion for the for the Carolina Pangeros and Bowling Braviary. Virizion is a solid tier B pick. Could possibly be borderline just because of the 2-tier system. It does complete his fairy every time. Fire, water, grass, core. It's very good though. Like it can hit special or physical and can set up either way as well, and hits very hard with a setup move up.
So yeah, Milan has picked up Golbat, another one of those really fantastic tier B options. It's with an Eviolite, it's just super bulky, super difficult to take down. It's really strong pivot for that reason, because it can just come in and soak up a hit and U-turn out if it wants to. It can wrist up, stay in the game, and then it gives him defog support, so you know, if Suicune's got T-Spikes up to try to deal with it, then he'll just defog that away. It's very handy Pokemon for him to have. It's honestly, I think his team's looking a bit bulky and light on the setup sweepers for a team with Aurora Veil, but it's still definitely looking very solid and well-rounded. Anyway, I'll just talk about my own pick, not to interject, but I picked up Registeel here. Obviously, very bulky steel type. Its main issues are that it's too passive and that it doesn't have reliable recovery. Well, I've got Sylveon to give it wish support to patch at least one of those issues. And you know, Seismic Toss can somewhat patch the other. Also gives me a Rock Setter, which I otherwise didn't have, which is very nice for chipping things down, threatening everything. So yeah, my team's looking a lot bulkier than last season, gotta say.
Yeah, I do agree with that. Definitely is true. Registeel is a very nice mon and a good tier B pick. I was thinking about going that, but you know, I didn't. But yeah, now we have Zoroark coming in for Cody in the London Lapras. Zoroark was used pretty effectively last season by TCP, making, well, it was in the championship, but I don't think it ever hit the field. But
no, it did not go to the championship.
Yeah, it didn't. Okay, well, oof. Anyways, it's just, I don't know how to describe it besides that it can transform into things or whatever. I can't even think of the ability.
Imposter. Not imposter, sorry, disguise. But yeah, it's
disguise.
Very
Yeah.
Very strong dark type hitting on both sides. Very strong Pokemon. Anyway, I just picked up Gastrodon. Gastrodon Tangro is looking very annoying to deal with, but at least it's not an Alamomola or something. You know, Gastrodon gives him a water immunity and an electric immunity, which is both very nice. Gives him a nice special wall. He still doesn't have like a reliable rock setter because it's only Terrakion, and he doesn't have any removal for that Mega Pinsir, which is a bit interesting to see, but I imagine he'll be patching that up soon with his other picks, as it is very strong, difficult to break through defensive core.
Yeah, and Demaster is going to take Ditto. Ditto, probably the MVP for the Washington Whalers last season. Ditto's Cameron showed how good Ditto is, even if the rest of your team doesn't perform so well in this season.
Why'd you gotta do him like that?
I mean, he's the Ditto master, and he's Ditto well, and I think that it's a pretty good pick. He maybe could have saved it, but because he is at the end of the round. But you know.
Anyway, we have Cookbag coming here. Honestly, this one is a Pokemon that I definitely do think is borderline tier A, if not tier A. It's so bulky as a ghost type. It's like just one of the best fighting checks. It has Mummy, so it can get rid of a lot of abilities that otherwise make a Pokemon viable. It's also really strong. Trick Room Nasty Plot is an extremely frustrating set to deal with at times. You can run Z-Move on it if you want and just hit really hard with that never-ending nightmare, and it's like also sets up Toxic Spikes to really help support the team. It's got a lot of options, Memento even to help that Dragonite setup. It's just very versatile, very strong, even if it's like offensively not that versatile, it's still very threatening.
Yeah, and now we have Espeon for Anderson and the St. Louis Samurott. Espeon is a very hard-hitting special attacker, especially if you slap a Specs on it or like set up a Calm Mind. It is an evolution, so it's going to provide all the things that the evolutions provide, which is always nice for the team. It's interesting. I'll look forward to seeing how he uses Espeon this season. And,
yeah, he's definitely got a rather unorthodox team so far. He's got his reign, but it's definitely weird. Anyway, Ariados, that's not something I'd expect as a round 1 pick. I usually see it go undrafted. It does give him sticky webs though, so that's obviously a very nice thing, as well as Toxic Spikes. It's probably only really going to be usable as a suicide lead, but you know, sticky web plus Mega Kangaskhan is going to be a real issue to deal with for a lot of teams. Kangaskhan can of course set up Power Punch and get to +2, so +2 Kangaskhan with sticky webs up's very, very frustrating to deal with.
Yeah, and now he's going to take Aromatisse, sniping several people, I think.
I'd imagine so. It's a very sought after pick.
Yeah, especially after season 3. But that's not important. That's not important. So, yeah, it's going to give him a wish setter, I guess you could say, and it's going to be a nice bulky mon, probably one of his better picks so far. Maybe he should have picked that ahead of Ariados.
It didn't matter because it was a weird pick.
Yeah. Just in terms of like memes, but anyways.
Would you say it's also really nice for his Fire Water Grass Core?
Yes, indeed. Very much.
Yeah. So Brad has now picked up Machamp. Machamp's very strong fighting type Pokemon, and it's best known for No Guard Dynamic Punch. This is gonna be very hacks kind of Pokemon to deal with a lot of the time, but it definitely is not defined by that exclusively. Guts Flame Orb is actually probably its better set right now, with Facade breaking through a lot of things. It's got close combat to deal with things, Knockoff is really powerful. It's just really difficult to switch into for a tier B Pokemon. It's like a budget Conkeldurr, honestly, and in a lot of ways. But, you know, it's looking like, once again, still a very unorthodox team, and Brad definitely likes unorthodox stuff, so we'll see how he goes with it.
Yeah, and Susie's gonna pick up Quillfish, a pick that I know Hutch backed. We can say that.
I love this one.
Quillfish is just a very good mon. Intimidate is always nice in general, just an ability. It also gets Toxic Spikes and things like Destiny Bond. I think it gets Pain Split, T-Wave, all those things, and it's just very good in terms of utility. And it also can hit pretty hard, I believe. It does get like Liquidation, Poison Jab, if you want to run it like that as well.
So Demaster has picked up Mega Banette, and Brad has wrote an article about this fairly recently. Mega Banette's quite a good Pokemon. It's obviously got an insanely high attack stat with Shadow Sneak and Sucker Punch priority. That's obviously quite nice. Obviously Ghost is a very nice offensive typing and only resisted by 2 things after all, well, immune to normals, but it's also got a lot of utility. Prankster is really nice for it. Prankster Will-O-Wisp, Prankster Destiny Bond, and one of my personal favorites is Carmine's Cotton Guard Sweeper. It's just very difficult to break, set up +3 defense.
Yeah, now we're gonna have Sylvally for Hutch. Sylvally is a great tier B pick considering you can use any type. Sorry for the background noise. Yeah, you can use any type. So Hutch is gonna like have a wide variety of options. It also does get defog and U-turn, as somebody mentioned earlier. But it has a good move pool, and you can kind of use it however you want. So I think this is a good pick for Hutch. Just in terms of fitting his so far.
Yeah, finally gives him some hazard removal and stuff. Anyway, Cody has picked up Talonflame, the Fallen Legend. Talonflame's still a very solid Pokemon even after the Gale Wings nerf. It's got really nice for def, so it's a great fairy switch in, which he doesn't necessarily need, but he definitely appreciates regardless. Also, with such a fast speed, it can definitely still like do the same kind of work with Brave Bird. Not much is actually outspeeding it. You know, he has got to worry about Coco and stuff, but other than that, he's pretty much set. Anyway, I'll talk about my next pick as well. I picked up a Selgor here. You know, just really like Spike support in a lot of teams. Spikes is definitely something I seek out a lot, and Selgor offered that to me. So I feel like it synergizes really well with the me and Shao stuff that I kind of built my draft around, quote unquote built, and just weakens things to put them in range of high jump kick, and pressures switches really well, so I really like it for that.
Yeah, Selgor is definitely a great lead in terms of, you know, doing exactly what you said. But yeah.
Yeah, it also has some pretty good special attack, honestly. I probably wouldn't necessarily want to run that as much when I've got other better options, but in certain matchups, it's definitely a strong pick just because of how fast it is.
Yeah, I've seen Specs Excelgor used before, and it did some work. But now we're gonna have Golurk for Milan in the Amsterdam Alakazams. This is a pretty good pick in my opinion. Golurk is an interesting mon. We haven't seen it used a whole lot, but it gets things. It gets is it no guard?
Yes.
Yeah.
No guard.
Yeah, because it gets Dynamic Punch, and it gets Shadow Punch, and it gets Earthquake, Rock Polish. Golurk is very dangerous. It does get Swords Dance, I believe, and it also is good.
So.
Oh well, I meant
it's still pretty powerful.
I'm smart. I meant Stealth Rocks. It gets Stealth Rocks.
Ah, yes, it does get that.
Yeah. I don't even know I'm out of it.
So now Braviary has picked up Rhydon. Rhydon's quite a bulky Pokemon, and it gives him a rocker, which is something that definitely helps a lot. I really like Entry Hazards. Entry Hazards is super helpful for getting rid of sashes, chipping down teams, punishing and pressuring switches and whatnot, forcing defogs. It's just super good, and it's also really strong fire check and flying check. He didn't really need that, particularly with the Celesteela. It's mostly for the rocks, but still quite a solid pick.
Yeah, now we have Chestnut for the Houston Hoopas and AZ. This is I forgot what I was gonna say, but yeah, Chestnut is good on terms of defense. It gets Spiky Shield, which is always very annoying for whoever it's facing, and Leech Seed and Synthesis and all those utility moves. It also it can hit decently hard, I believe. I saw like a set that it was used on, but Chestnut was a good fit for his team, and I think I'll use it well. And the bulletproof ability is also pretty interesting.
Yeah. Emboar is definitely the harder hitting starter though, for sure.
Yeah.
Very, very strong Pokemon. I probably didn't say very enough. It's so ridiculously powerful with just Flare Blitz, Superpower. Wild Charge covers most of its issues with the water types. he's got a very strong team, and Ball with maybe Trick Room or Uniclus is really something that you gotta have to watch out for. Very strong options there.
Yeah, and now we have Kamala for Static. And Kamala is one of the most interesting, you could say, mons in the format. It does have hazard removal, it has wish support, and it hits like a truck. We saw Anderson use it pretty well last season with just standard sets and going sets like the Sleep Talk set. That was very good set in my opinion. But Kamala is a pretty good fit for Static's team, and I'm really liking the Static's team so far.
And Katas picks up Comfy. Comfy's quite a strong fairy type option in this tier B. You probably won't run it necessarily that much, but it is definitely quite a bulky option there. It doesn't offer the most out of most fairies, which is why it's here, but it does have that priority Draining Kiss, priority Synthesis, priority Leech Seed. It's quite a threatening Calm Minesweeper. If you play it right, you can 6-0 some teams, but definitely pretty situational.
Yep, and now we have Piloswine for the Orlando Bulbasaurs, another member of last season's Portland Timbers. Piloswine is one of the best Eviolite users, in my opinion, just in the format. It's very bulky. Stealth Rocks is obviously nice. I believe that's his first Stealth Rocker. And it does have the priority in Ice Shard and the standard moves that it gets, like Icicle Crash and Earthquake. It also has screens. Interesting fact.
Really? Did not know that. Anyway, Electros, one of Malone's old Pokemon. This is a very bulky electric type. It definitely soaks up the hits very well, which makes it a fantastic pivot option. It's not fulfilling the role of that fast electric type that a lot of drafts want, but it definitely does fulfill its own niche. And just being that strong, bulky pivot into his Blacephalon and Heracross is super good option. Pressures those flying types that are otherwise kind of problematic for Heracross. Pressuring, just pivoting well. All round solid pick, I reckon.
Yeah, Electros is a very versatile and good pick for Marble. I'm not even going to try to say it too hard. So we have Mega Steelix for the Kling Klang United in Grand. This is a pretty good tier B Mega. We saw Excellent Name have it use it last season pretty effectively. It is another Stealth Rocker for the team and is a good wall in terms of that, and similar to Mega Aggron in many ways, but it does hit hard with things like Gyro Ball.
Heavy Slam's probably better usually.
And Heavy Slam, yeah. I just wasn't sure it had Heavy Slam. I thought it was, but yeah.
Yeah.
And it also has some pretty good utility as well.
Yeah. So Kisa picks up Hitmontop. Hitmontop's very nice tier B Pokemon. One of my favorites, honestly. So bulky. It's such a good switch into Dark type moves, which is definitely going to be really nice for a Slowbro. Intimidate makes it quite a nice check to the physical attackers, while it often can quite easily run an Assault Vest to check the special attackers. So very nice on both fronts there. It gives him a spinner, which is obviously really good for both QMB and Mega Houndoom, giving them a lot more switches and just overall supporting the team quite effectively.
Yeah. And now we have Tyrantrum for the Zagreb Zangooses. Tyrantrum is another powerful tier B heavy hitter, It hits very hard with Dragon Dance up or Choice Band. Heavy Slam is obviously going to do a lot of work for Tyrantrum. And with Rockhead, it's pretty nice as well. And Strong Jaw, two pretty decent abilities. And with a pretty good move pool as well. Yeah.
Yeah, so Climax picks up Blastoise. This is a Pokemon I used last season, and it's quite solid. Gotta say, it gives really good switch in to the fire types and the water types, even though it doesn't have that reliable recovery. It's still a very nice option. Gives you reliable spin, can toxic things that are bulky, can scald the physical attackers and fish for burns. Definitely finishes off his Firewater Grass Pull, which is also very good to see. Yeah, so definitely solid Pokemon all around.
Yeah, I agree with that. His team is
My teammates just doing things.
yeah, Blast. I mean, the team is pretty interesting. Hopefully, he'll be able to get some more offense involved. But now we have Minior for PC Barcelona and Shadow. Again, sticking with that that heavy offense. I do like Minior, and I think this is a decent pick. It's good for Shell Smash, you know, and it's very threatening if he's able to get a Shell Smash up. But again, just hopefully he's able to pick up some defense.
I've got a feeling he's not going to be, because he's not actually here, so he's not watching the stream. Anyway, Zeb Striker for Ubers picks up Zeb Striker. There's a shock. So, obviously, given his name, he's probably got a fair bit of experience with this, and he's probably going to feel really comfortable using this Pokemon. It does give him a nice Volt Switch option, which gets in a lot of his threats like Entei, Honchkrow, but it's definitely looking like quite an offensive team. He's filling out his types and all, but it's still not feeling all that strong synergetically to me.
Yeah, I definitely agree. Zebstrika is interesting pick for late tier 2. But now we have Rotom for the Washington Red Skitty. I like this pick. Rotom is very good tier B Mon. It's great for pivot. It's great for basically everything I said with Rotom Wash. Leaf Storm is obviously very powerful if you want to go like Specs or Scarf, and yeah, it's good offensive or defensive, however you want to.
Yeah, and another thing is that it like really effectively deals with a fair few Pokemon on his team, so now he's taken that off the board. Anyway, next up, Big Daddy Dave picks up Alomomola. I do not think I agree with Toxapex Alomomola. They're basically the same thing, realistically, filling very similar roles. Alomomola does have the Wish support, but other than that, they're like so similar. It's the overlap here is a bit much in a 9 Pokemon thing, in my opinion, and you know, while Wish support is nice, he already has Tapu Bulu for that grassy terrain passive recovery on stuff.
Yep, and now we have Skuntank for the Hartford Whalmers. Skuntank is a pretty good pick for tier B. It's another hazard remover with defog, and it has a pretty good move pool, getting things like Poison Jab, Play Rough, you know, the dark type moves, fire moves like Fire Blast, and priority with Sucker Punch, and it also has a pretty good Pursuit Trapper as well. It also has some pretty good utility moves like Taunt, Toxic, Haze Roar, those kinds of things. And I guess we'll talk about my pick too, while I have the chance. So I am picking Umbreon, and I know it's very similar to Vaporeon, but I realized that I wanted to use Umbreon, and it actually didn't fit my team that terribly. I know that yeah, they are very similar, but they can both be ran specially or physically defensive, just depending on how you wanna do it.
Yeah, while they do both pass wishes, they are at least different types, so they do cover weaknesses differently. Anyway, Muff gets Glyspod. Glyspod gives him a nice ground resist and a water resist. Even though it does have emergency exit, which does kind of cripple it in that sense, it is still at least a switch into those things, and it can potentially give him some free switches to other Pokemon with that emergency exit. It also has a lot of priority options and spikes to help facilitate some sweeps with X-Drill.
Yeah, and now we have Tornadus Eye, a pick I haven't seen in almost ever. I've seen it a couple times, but Now that it's in Tier B, it's gonna have a better use, I think. And I actually don't think this pick was that bad. Tornadus T is like it's an interesting mon. Obviously, the inferior to Tornadus T. I said Tornadus I, right?
No,
Yeah.
but it doesn't matter.
It's all good. It's all good.
They know what you mean.
Yeah, and it has 2 good abilities in Prankster and Defiant. And it's very similar to Tornadus Therian. It does get the U-turn, it gets the Tailwind, it gets the Taunt, Toxic, all those interesting utility moves that you might pack on it. Again, you can do Bulk Up, Acrobatics, those kind of things. And then the usual special moves that you could go for, like Hurricane, Sludge Wave, Heat Wave, Dark Pulse.
Yeah, very, very solid Pokemon. But let's go to Miltank. Miltank's very nice, bulky Pokemon. It's also deceptively fast at base 100 speed with a decent attack stat. So it can be run offensively if you want, but you'll mainly be seeing it defensively. It's a good rock fetter, which is helpful. It slacks off. It's nice ghost resist, which are pretty hard to come by. And, you know, definitely strong support for the team.
Yeah, I agree. We do have the next pick here, and that is going to be Quagsire for the Arcanite and Altaria modems. Quagsire is a good pick, I think, for his team. It's just one of those mons that is very bulky. It is a quad weakness, has a quad weakness in grass, but besides that, it's very effective. You can even run some memes on it, like Power Up Punch, if you want to be like that. But yeah, he gets like Recover, and then all the utility moves that you want, just standard Quagsire, you know.
Yeah, the one issue I do have with it though is his only water type isn't a water or ice resist. But other than that, so Ghost picks up Dublade here. Dublade is a really nice steel type for this tier. It's Steel Ghost type is one of the best typings in the game, I feel. Is one of the reasons why Aegislash is so good. It's got a lot of natural bulk with the Eviolite, not specially, but Fizz Def is really good. It doesn't do much defensively though, but offensively it can set up Swords Dance quite safely behind that bulky defense, and it has Shadow Sneak for priority. Plus, you know, just Iron Head and Sacred Sword coverage and stab. Very solid Pokemon.
Yeah, now we're gonna have Stoutland for the Mississippi Mudsdales. This is obviously not super surprising because he already has the Sand with Tyranitar and Excadrill. Stoutland is just a good Sand Sweeper. It's gonna go in and click a move and attempt to kill things in the stand. Stoutland, it does have 3 pretty good abilities, but I feel like he'll mainly just go with the Sand Rush, and it does have a very good move pool.
So why don't you explain your pick as well?
Oh yeah, sorry. Yeah, so I got sniped with Whimsicott when we were thinking, and I was just kind of like, screw it. Static suggested Shinotic, and like Susie or whoever suggested it. I don't remember exactly who it was, but it just kind of, yeah, covered my weaknesses pretty well. Obviously wanted Whimsicott, but I'm kind of excited. Interesting mon to use.
Anyway, TCP picks up Executor Alolan form. Very iffy dragon choice. It's 4 times weak to ice, which I know a lot of them are, but as a slow Pokemon and being grass type, it's really not doing any favors. If it can come in safely though, it does definitely hit very hard, and he does have Stack Attacker and Executor to set up Trick Room now, so that's obviously going to be something that you need to watch out for.
Yeah, Alolan Executor getting used by Hudge in previous seasons, but now we have Uxie for the Chicago Conkelders. That is the second of the trio gone, I believe. maybe? I don't know. But yeah, Uxie is very good, as well as all the Lake Trio mons. It just has a good move pool and good everything. It sets up rocks, you know. It's very good defensively. It has 130 on both of its base defenses. It does not have any recovery though, which is a problem besides rest. But besides that, it's very useful. It can trick things. It has memento. It can set up screens.
Yeah, for sure. Very versatile pivot option. So Max picked up a Beware. Beware is a very powerful Pokemon. And Fluffy actually makes it a really strong defensive option. It takes some hits really well. Even super effective hits are pretty easily eaten up if they're on the physical side. And then it can really hit hard with those normal fighting moves. It is checked fairly easily by the bulky ghost types, but other than that, it can really wreck shop. You know, bulk up I believe it gets, can set up, but you know, definitely a strong Pokemon.
Yeah, and now we have Hariyama, another good fighting type in Tier B. Hariyama gets things like Bullet Punch for priority, and has good abilities in Thick Fat Guts and Sheer Force, which are all great abilities, and it has a good move pool as well. And it gets things like Toxic and those things, and surprisingly gets Whirlwind actually, just for utility. But Hariyama is a good addition to the team.
Now Shadow has picked up Typhlosion. It's very clear that he just wants all of the Pokemon that hit really hard, and while I am all for hyper offense, don't get me wrong, I love it, you gotta have some things that can switch into different types. Look at all of the water weaknesses he has. Everything that he's drafted the past 4 picks is weak to water, and he doesn't have a single resist. He doesn't even need to really be that bulky for it to be able to be a solid option as a water resist. He's really got to consider picking up something for that issue, because as it is, you can't really just throw a bunch of strong Pokemon on and hope it works out. You need to synergize it.
Yeah, and now we do have Licky for the New England Patriots, which is their a wish setter for them, and a good overall defensive mon. But it does have or not necessarily have, but it does have very good offensive capabilities. I believe it even gets like Belly Drum if you want to do that. It's also a cleric, it gets Heal Bell and Wish, and it does get things like Toxic for the things that need it. And it has a very good move pool to hit things, whether it's you know, offensive or defensive. Yeah.
Yeah. So coming up next is Incineroar. This is a rather nice fire type. It doesn't get Intimidate in this league because Intimidate is currently unreleased, but it still does work as a fantastic pivot, especially with an Assault Vest. U-Turn is great for momentum. It gets in his threats like Keldeo and Nidoking specifically. It's got Darkest Lariat as a nice spammable dark option that just kind of disregards any defensive setup, which is really nice to see. And yeah, it's just a nice wall breaker.
Now I have Malamar for the Phoenix Flygons. Malamar is an interesting tier B mon with Contrary, obviously, being its main shenanigan. Although Infiltrator could be an interesting ability. Or even like, I don't even know what the other one is, but yeah, Malamar is obviously good for just clicking superpower and those moves like Night Slasher knockoff or Psycho Cut or Rock Slide or whatever you have. It also is good for the Trick Room if you want to run that. Looking at his team, we'll see. But
yeah. So Gran has picked up Tangela, and Tangela is definitely a rather solid Pokemon with the Eviolite. Budget Tangrowth for sure, but instead of having to run an Assault Vest, it can actually just run Leech Seed on it, or Sleep Powder or whatever, and shut down some Pokemon while still being able to take those special hits. This makes it a really nice electric check, and while he doesn't really need that too much as he already has a Mamoswine, it's definitely still a really strong pivot for him. Regenerator, obviously one of the best abilities in the game. Just so good for his team.
yeah, now we're gonna Yeah, and now we're gonna have Mawile for the Marlboro Magnetons. I said it right. Mawile, obviously, not the same thing as Mega Mawile. It does have two good abilities in Intimidate and Sheer Force, though, and a very good move pool and Swords Dance. It does not have the ability, though, that makes its attack overpowered. So its stats are not very good in terms of the base stats, but can still put in work nonetheless, and looking forward to seeing him use it this season.
Yeah, it's my favorite PU Pokemon because Intimidate's obviously a fantastic ability. It switches into Dragon moves and Dark moves really well, and sets up hazards as well as being a threatening offensive option. Also, this guy has picked up Serena here, and Serena's a really nice rapid spinner. I did draft it and not bring it a single time. It didn't really need to be brought, but that does not mean I think it's a bad Pokemon by any stretch of the imagination. It does somewhat suffer from 4 move slot syndrome as it wants to run U-turn, drop kick, rapid spin, synthesis, jump kick, etc. But it still is quite good at what it does. And what it does is come in, soak ground hits, soak electric hits, and get rid of those hazards, and pressure out a fair few of the common Pokemon that set hazards, namely the ground and rock types.
Yeah, now we're gonna have Blaziken for the Randolph Rotoms. Obviously, it's not Speed Boost Blaziken, but Blaziken is just a hard hitter and a pretty good lower tier firefighting type. Kind of inferior to Emboar, but it does have a base 120 attack. And its speed, and it actually has a pretty good special attack. The problem is its speed, though, is not as good as it is with, you know, speed boost. Yeah, so.
I really like this pick. Alolan Raichu. He may not have the Tapu Koko to back it up, but Alolan Raichu is still a really nice Pokemon. I may have tried to bring Nasty Plot on it one too many times, but honestly, that was my own fault. Choice Spec's really good set for it. It gets Encore, Fake Out, Nuzzle. It's got a lot of good utility options, so it can come in and do a lot more than just set up and try to sweep some teams. It's a rather good revenge killer. Even without Surge Surfer, it's got a really nice speed stat at 110, so it can outspeed a lot of things. And yeah, just Volt Switch is always a good idea. It brings in his Charizard, which is clearly what he's going for here.
Yeah, and now we're going
also, kills those waters.
We're going to have the next pick rolling for fourth
time I've been sniped in TV.
Hotspur, and just pushes buttons. And he is going to pick Bronzong, which is a good tier B. In his defense, is already round 3, and Bronzong, in my opinion, is one of the best things in tier B. It's just a very good defensive steel type that has rocks and some pretty good abilities. So I'm honestly, I was expecting it to go sometime.
Yeah, it's comparable to Registeel in a lot of ways, but it does have a much stronger offensive presence because it has that Gyro Ball, which hits really hard. It also has Trick Room, another Trick Room option for his Emboar. Better be careful of that.
Yeah.
Anyway, next up is Seismitoad, and Seismitoad finishes up that Fire, Water, Grass core very nicely. Seismitoad's also a really nice ground type and water immunity, so it can definitely switch in on a lot of things. It doesn't have reliable recovery, but it does set up the rocks and it can come in on the water hits and heal up, so if you can bait those to happen, then it's really nice. And yeah, synergizes quite well. He's got a lot of good defensive synergy right now.
Yeah, I would have to agree with that. And now we're going to have Dredagon for the Carolina Pangoros and Bowling Braviary, which is going to complete his Fairy Dragon Steel core. I did it. It is another rock setter for the team after Rhydon, and a good bulky wall with rough skin. It also gets things like Sheer Force to help it out with a pretty good attack and Mold Breaker. So it does have pretty good abilities. And along with its pretty good move pool, it's going to be able to handle anything defensively. pretty well. It also gets things like Taunt and Toxic if it wants to be like that.
Yeah, I'm a big fan of Druddigon. That's another one of my favorites in the lower tiers. So next up is Mega Camerupt. Mega Camerupt is usually considered one of the worst megas, but it's actually really powerful with sheer force powers, hitting really hard. It's usually only really good in Trick Room, but even outside of Trick Room with Aurora Veil, it should be able to take some hits, even though it has a lot of 4x weaknesses. It does have some pretty solid bulk. It also gives him another Stealth Rock setter if he really wants, but usually it's probably going to want to just get off a hard hit on something. But yeah, it's going to be interesting to see him use this. Anyway, I'll just talk about my pick as well. I picked up Gligar here. Gligar is one of the best ground types in Tier B, if not the best. Also gives me a flying type, i.e. a ground immunity, which I wasn't particularly worried about grounds at the time, but I was somewhat worried about electric types. This also gives me another rock setter and defoger, so it really synergizes well, especially with the U-turn options.
Yeah, I definitely agree with that. And now we're going to have Stunfisk for the London Lapras. And Stunfisk has become more of a somewhat viable lower tier Pokemon. And I've seen it used, and it fits his team pretty well. Stunfisk, it's just good defensively due to its HP being pretty good. If you give it maybe even like an AV, it has just good defensive stats, as well as Stealth Rocks and all those utility moves that you would need. And Pain Spray.
Yeah, and its typing makes it a surprisingly strong check to a lot of Pokemon. Anyway, Hutch picks up Mesprit here. Mesprit's another very solid Pokemon. It's you know, a bit in between Azelf and Uxie. It's not quite as bulky as you'd want and not quite as powerful as you want, but it's definitely, for a Tier B Pokemon, quite good stats and very good move pool. It's similar in Savali in a lot of ways, in that kind of sense. It's like fairly good but not fantastic at pretty much everything you want to throw it in, which means it's very versatile for his draft, and versatility in a 9 Pokemon thing is very solid. Also gives him a Psychic type, which, you know, another good typing to, not that he really needed fighting resist too badly, but still nice.
Yeah, and the Master is going to complete a core by picking Kabutops, a pretty strong Tier B Mon. It can really just set up a Sword Stance or put a band on it or Life Orb. It does have Aqua Jet, which is good for priority, obviously. Its abilities aren't that good unless you're in rain, obviously, because it gets Swift Swim. It also is a hazard remover though, and I think it'll fit his team pretty well.
So next up is Sneasel, and Sneasel's another one of those really fantastic Tier B picks. It's honestly does pretty much the same job as Weavile does, like only slightly worse. It's still very competent at pursuit trapping. It's still very fast. It's not quite as fast, not going to outspeed everything, but it's going to outspeed most of the things that you would want it to outspeed anyway. Ice Stab, very powerful when Dragon types are such an important thing, and obviously Knockoff is fantastic in this format, getting rid of items which are often very essential for prep. It can run Sword Stance, Choice Band, etc. very competently.
Yeah, and now we have Drapion for the St. Louis Samurott and Anderson. I do like this pick. Drapion is a very, I don't know how to describe it besides good, so I'm just gonna say good. You're welcome. Yeah, but it has some decent abilities, but where it has very good just moves in general. It has things like Toxic Spikes for the hazards. It has Taunt, Toxic, Whirlwind for those utility, and it obviously hits very hard. If you want to set up a Sword Stance, you can.
So next up is Noivern, and Noivern's a very slept on Pokemon. Honestly, it's got the same bulk as Crobat, which is honestly ridiculous to think about because it's got pretty much the same kind of moves as Crobat too. It can roost, it can taunt, so it's a very effective store breaker. It's got powerful boom burst, Draco Meteors, flamethrowers. You're usually going to see it be running specs. That's the most common set that you'd see, at least on the ladder, and people often translate it to Draft League. But it can definitely run bulky very effectively and really threaten some Pokemon and stall in general.
Yeah, and now we're going to have Kling Klang for the top tier Tornadus and Country Boy Cameron. It's an interesting pick, kind of, to complete out his lower tier Fairy Dragon Steel Core. But just personally, I do like Kecleon as a Mon. It mainly can just set up a shift gear, but it does have some, decent coverage. It does get a wild charge and like return if you want to use that. It also has some pretty good utility moves like Trick Room and Toxic and those kinds of things. And it also can even be pivot if you want to Volt Switch.
Yeah, it's definitely a surprisingly strong sweep up with Shift Gear. It's often is walled by a fair bit, but if you can get rid of it, Shift Gear is just such a fantastic move, honestly.
Yeah.
That +2 speed lets it outspeed a lot, and it's got pretty decent bulk. So next up is Kecleon. Kecleon's got Protean, which is another one of the best abilities in the game, gotta say. It gives him a rocker, it's got a really nice bulk and recover, so that's really nice to see as well. It also has a lot of priority moves, power up punch, and fair bit of coverage. It's definitely an interesting Pokemon to deal with. Deceptively bulky, not as strong as you'd probably want it to be, but definitely still a really solid pick overall for his normal type.
Yeah, definitely. Kecleon is just a very interesting one, as you said, with Protean. It has a very very broad move pool as well.
It's shaping up to be a fun game to be using.
Yeah, it definitely looks like one. Now we're gonna have Claydol for the Utah Hoots, giving them its a ground type and a hazard removal. It is another psychic type, but I'm guessing they can work around that. Although their dark weakness is actually pretty big now that I think about it. But it's a good pick. It does remove the hazards. It's very bulky, you know. It can set out Calm Minds, and it has a good move pool to support it. And it is another Trick Room setter.
Yeah, man, look out for that M-Ball. It's gonna be a real issue. So next up we have Politoed, and now the Kabutops makes a bit more sense. Now you've got Rain to complement it, and that's obviously gonna be really nice to see. So the having to worry about weather is really nice in prep as well. Even if it's not like the strongest weather, it's always got to be something that's in the back of your mind. It's also can synergize somewhat with Zapdos Thunder if you want, because Zapdos is actually pretty strong, honestly. So yeah, it's definitely good to see.
Yeah, and we're going to have Durant for the Portland Timbers. I know this pick was a little up to debate, you could say, but I think that either way, he made a good choice. And Durant's going to fit his team pretty well. As some people mentioned, it was one of the last remaining decent Steel types. And I think that Hutch has the skills to use this well anyways, so hopefully he can get past its ability and use it well.
You can always just run Swarm.
Yeah.
It really needs Hustle to be effective, but if you can hit your moves or maybe use Hone Claws, it's definitely like really powerful. Anyway, Cody's drafted Vileplume. Vileplume's like that Glass Poison typing is really nice for dealing with a lot of things. It checks the Fairy types, it checks the Electric types. It's definitely a solid defensive typing. Vileplume's not necessarily the first Pokemon you think of when it comes to that, but you know, gets the job done for sure. And now he just needs a water type, it seems, to finish out that core. A lot of unorthodox options that synergize really well on this team, I feel.
Yeah. And you want to talk about your pick?
Right, yeah. So I've got Rotom here. I was realizing that I need 3 different types, and the Pokemon that I wanted only filled one of those, and then I'd have to pick which type I wanted for the other one. So I decided to change my mind. I was going to draft Electabuzz before, but then I drafted Rotom. Rotom gives me that ghost typing, which is really nice to spin block, specifically my Celdor, Spikes, and most importantly, it also gives me like Pain Split, Will-O-Wisp, Defog. It's definitely a solid Pokemon all around.
Yeah, and now we're going to have Alolan Sandslash for the Amsterdam Alakazams. Not surprised at all due to the fact that they already have Alolan Ninetales. And this team is shaping up to be a pretty interesting but fun team to use from the perspective of Milan. Sandslash is another hazard remover and a good sweeper in the sand, as I basically already mentioned. It also gets a Roar Veil too if you want to do that.
Yeah, just having that Hail Sweep is really nice option, like I said, for Lake. So now Bowling Braviary has picked up Cryogonal, and I'm surprised to see it fall this low. It's one of it's a really popular Pokemon amongst a lot of people here, and often goes fairly early in the draft because it's just each special hits so well. It's got Recover, it's got Levitate, it's got Rapid Spin, so it offers a lot for a team. Sorry, bit of a cough there. It's not one of the best spinners because it is weak to rocks, but Levitate does help a lot in making it immune to spikes at least, so it is definitely a nice pick. And it also gets dual screens too.
Yeah. And we're now going to have Alolan Persian for the Houston Hoopas. Every time I say that now. Alolan Persian is a good utility mon. And a pretty good pick for this round. Fur Coat is a good ability in Technician if he wants to run like that. It gets things like Fake Out and has a pretty good move pool now that I look at it. But it's mainly known for things like Parting Shot and taunting or switcherooing, you know, like all those utility things that I think Alolan Persian is good for. It also gets things like Knock Off and U-Turn if you don't want a Parting Shot.
Yeah, it's definitely one of the better support pivots. Anyway, next up is Amaldo. Amaldo is definitely doesn't have the best typing. Rock Bug, like 2 of the worst types in my opinion, but it does offer Rapid Spin and Rock, so it definitely gives a lot of roll compression to a draft. It's one of those Pokemon where you're like, shit man, I need rocks and I need to spin, let's just put Amaldo on. Other than that though, it's kind of like bringing 5 vs 6. I don't respect this Pokemon very much outside of doing those 2 things. It's kind of like Claydol to me in that sense. But you know, it does do those 2 things and he did need that.
Yeah, and now we're going to have Sableye for Static. So, yeah, Static has been looking at Sableye for this draft and made the right decision to wait for this round because nobody got him. But Sableye is a good pick for Static, obviously having that Prankster ability is going to make it very annoying to face for Static with the Will-O-Wisp and the Recover and all of the utility it gets. There's a lot of utility going on with Sableye. You can also go for like Calm Mind sweeps, you know, get Fake Out, and overall just good for his team.
And next up is Venomoth. Venomoth is actually really fantastic as a Quiver Dance sweeper. Tinted Lens is a fantastic ability that lets you break through a lot of otherwise counters to it. It doesn't set up super easily, but if it can get up a Quiver Dance, it's going to do a lot of damage to the team, especially if you want to give it a Z move and say you Savage Spin Out on something. There's really not much that can switch into a Venomoth once it's set up if you have the right support. It also does offer some support with like defog and stuff, but it's obviously not the best choice for that, especially when you already have a Mandibuzz. But you know, the option is there.
Yeah, and now we're going to have the Electabuzz for the Orlando Bulbasaurs in Awesomeness Sky. It's a good pick for his team, which is shaping up to be pretty good. And Electabuzz is a great EV user for Tier B. It's going to be hitting things hard, has Volt Switch, and even like priority in Quick Attack if you want to do that. It also has some good utility moves like Thunder Wave and Toxic, and the screens, which have been used before. And overall, it's just a good mon with a good move pool.
Yeah, as a fast electric type, it definitely gets the job done. It was probably the best option left, especially considering you couldn't draft in Manectric, given the Mega Manectric was already drafted. But anyway, next up is Rhyperior. So Rhyperior also gives him rocks. Solid Rock makes it really bulky, even like non-stab water and grass moves it can usually take decently well if it needs to. It can hit pretty hard. Weakness Policy Rock Polish is a pretty strong set on this, but usually you're going to be seeing it be mostly a Flying Check, and Flying Checks are really helpful to have when you've got a Mega Venusaur. So it definitely synergizes quite well defensively, because Mega Venusaur covers all of its weaknesses, and it covers the flying weakness for Mega Venusaur.
Yeah, and now we're going to have Raichu for the Kling Kling United, and Grand Raichu is also a very good Tier B electric type that was left. That is not very, but it's pretty fast and has good ability in Lightning Rod or even Static if you wanted to do that. It is a good pivot. I don't know. I said it again. It is a good pivot with Volt Switch and does get utility moves like Wish or, you know, whatever you want. It can even nuzzle to paralyze things if you don't want to do Thunder Wave. And either way, I mean, you can run it special or physical. So Raichu is a good pick for the Kling Kling United.
Yeah, electric types are always just really nice to have on the draft. Anyway, Keystar has picked up the Villain, another very solid Quiver Dance sweeper. With Compound Eyes, it's going to be able to hit that Sleep Powder very well and then just set up a Quiver Dance. Also with Compound Eyes, it's not going to have to worry about Hurricane misses quite so much as other options would, and Bug Buzz is also a good option. You know, it's not necessarily the best Quiver Dance sweeper, but it's definitely something that you need to worry about. And he definitely also has... Well, actually no, he could probably use some better hazard control for this. He only actually has Hitmontop. But Hitmontop is a very solid removal.
Yeah, now we're gonna have Hoopa, a fantastic pick this late in the draft. Hoopa is just insane in terms of how hard it hits. With a 150 base special attack, 130 base special defense, 130 base attack, or 110 base attack. The only thing that's really lacking is a good speed stat. So if you're able to set up or, you know, allow it to get in a position to hit something, it's going to hit something incredibly hard.
Okay, so next up, Climax has picked up Rotom Fan, and you know, I'll say it once and I'll say it again, electric types are really solid picks. Honestly, almost any electric type is a viable option, and you might think, oh, I probably won't bring it much because it's pretty weak. You'll bring your electric type a lot. It's just such a solid option, and Rotom Fan is no exception. It's got the same bulk as Rotom Wash, and while it has much worse typing with a 25% weakness to rocks every time it comes in, it's going to be spreading Will-O-Wisp, it's going to be Belt Switching out, it's going to be an annoying Pokemon to deal with. He doesn't necessarily have the best switch-ins to bring after a pivot, a lot of his team is kind of weak, but it's definitely a solid option anyway.
Yeah, and now we're going to have Murkrow for the PC Barcelona. And Static, probably the most defensive mon on his team in terms of actually its use. It's an interesting pick, but this was, I believe, the first pick that he didn't have on his plan. And Prankster is a good ability for Murkrow, which is a very good Eviolite user. It does have a lot of good utility moves, like the Taunt and the Thunder Wave, and the Whirlwind, and the Roost. It also is a decent Pursuit Trapper, and it does have Haze to prevent the sweeps. It also does have Defog for a hazard removal.
Yeah, it's got a lot of good options, but once again, he's just getting completely murked by water moves right now. He's got no way of dealing with it. It's something that he 100% needs to catch up the last pick, and he realistically can't do that with what's left very easily. He can get like some kind of water type, but it's not going to be great. It's definitely going to be the pathway to beating his team. Lots of threats, but not a lot of ways of dealing with stuff in general. I do like Murkrow though, as adding a little bit of bulk. It's not necessarily going to take water hits particularly well, but it can at least take them somewhat and maybe get some Roost Stall.
Yeah.
Anyway, next up is Haunter, and you know, I'm a big fan of Haunter honestly as a ghost type. It does still have Levitate, unlike Gengar, and it's not necessarily the strongest, it's still fairly strong, but what I really do like with it is Sub-Disable. It can actually wall a lot of common like choice users and stuff. Like Crocodile, for example, it might just go for a knockoff, but then once you've disabled knockoff, it doesn't have any other options to deal with it. So it can definitely be a frustrating Pokemon to deal with in that sense if you prep for it. Don't prep for it correctly, and you know, Ghost is just such a good move, offensive type in general.
Yeah, and now we're gonna have Moltres coming out for the Washington Red Skitty and Matt Metagross. What was I gonna say? I don't remember. But Moltres is a really good lower tier mon. It has a very good special attack stat and a decent normal attack stat. If you're able to set up like Z Sunny Day with it, that's pretty neat. It also does get utility like Will-O-Wisp and Tailwind, and it does get U-Turn for some pivot as well.
Yeah. So next up is Rapidash. Rapidash has a pretty good move pool with Flare Blitz, Wild Charge, etc. It's a pretty viable option. It's not the best, but as far as fire type's concerned, it's pretty solid. It's got Will-O-Wisp and Morning Sun, so it can kind of do a worse version of Arcanine, and you know, hit pretty hard with Flare Blitzes and stuff. Flame Charge to boost its speed. So as far as fire types go, it definitely does check all the boxes. It's not like doing it as well as some other options, but if you don't have the other options, it's definitely viable.
Yeah, and we're going to have Mudsdale, a former like tier A mon, which is now in tier B, go out for the Hartford Whalmers. Mudsdale is a pretty good pick in tier B, having the good ability and stamina. It's really just gonna go in there and tank the hits that he needs to tank with decent HP and defense stats and a good attack stat in 125. He'll be hitting heavy with those heavy slams and earthquakes, and it is a rocker.
Yeah.
Stealth rocker.
Why don't you talk about Shuckle as well?
So Shuckle, basically I needed those two types, and Shuckle was there. I haven't really used it that much, and I was just kind of interested to use it. I know that it doesn't have the best attack stats, but its defense stats certainly make up for it. And Sticky Webs and Rocks are nice to have. And Shell Smash Contrary is always there. I thought it was just a pretty decent defensive mon to patch up some holes.
Yeah, Sticky Web plus Victini is definitely a really solid option. Anyway, coming in for Muffinator is Dusclops, and Dusclops is one of the best bulky ghost types, which definitely is really helpful because otherwise Pokemon like Excadrill, Tyranitar, Magneton, he was getting kind of bodied by fighting type moves before. He did have Celebi, but you know, this is a much more reliable check. It's not going to be dying to a U-turn, for example. It does get a little bit messed up by knockoff, like his entire team does currently, except T-Tar. So it's not necessarily going to be the best switch in, but you know, it's very solid. It can Will-O-Wisp some threats, it can Pain Split up, because its HP is pretty low, it's mostly just its defense stats that are really good.
Yeah, we're going to have Electivire for the Mountain Dugong and Ghost. Electivire is another good electric type that's left in Tier B, having the similar things that I said about Electabuzz earlier. Has a good ability in Motor Drive, which is very nice, and it is just a good pivot and a even harder hitting Mon with 123 base attack. It's going to put in a lot of work for Ghost, and I think that his team is shaping up to be pretty good.
Yeah, it's definitely not quite as fast as Electabuzz, but it's really good wall breaker. Anyway, Ian picks up Flareon, and Flareon's one of the better Fairy Resists available in Tier B. It's a very solid fire type, it gives him Wish Passing, which, although he did already have the Togekiss, is always appreciated. And also it's just another check for Kartana that's taken off the board. I'm not sure if he would have taken, like if anyone was planning on taking Flareon anyway, but it's still very helpful Pokemon. It's kind of like supplementing Semi-Stall while also having Hyper Offense. It's kind of a 50-50 draft in that sense, but very solid.
Yeah, now we're going to have the second, or I said second, the final round of the draft. And we're going to have Frostless go out for the Arcane Arcanines. Frostless, a good ghost type for Tier B, mainly being a utility mon with a pretty good speed stat. Gets things like Destiny Bond and Aurora Veil, although that's kind of useless for his team. And it does get all the things, Trick, Taunt, Will-O-Wisp, Toxic Thunder Wave. And it does hit somewhat decently with a base 80 special attack, so yeah, Frostless is a good pick, I think, to round out the Arcane Arcanines.
Yeah, I'm a huge fan of Frostless personally. It's definitely like fantastic spike setter, like you said, and also just can't be switched in or taken advantage of too easily because it does have those status options. It does hit decently hard, especially if you like get a Thunder Wave off and start spamming Hex. And also can get some surprise kills with Destiny Bombs sometimes. It also can spin block its own spike stack if it can stay alive. Most people want to try to kill it off as soon as possible, but they'll also be scared of Destiny Bond. And you know, sometimes Cursed Body can let you set up more spikes than you probably should have.
Yeah. And I believe we're going to have the next pick shortly. For Ghost.
It should load up for a few seconds.
Yeah, we're good.
Ooh, so next up is Go-Goat. Go-Goat's an interesting Pokemon to say the least. It's a pretty solid ground resist, which is helpful for its Volcanion and stuff. It can set up bulk ups and be kind of annoying with Horn Leech if your team isn't prepared for it. Definitely does get hard-walled by steel types, a lot of his team does, but he has the Volcanion obviously to really threaten those heavily. So definitely want to look out for that. If you can pressure him out with Stealth Rocks and this bulky steel type, he's going to have a lot of trouble, but if you can deal with that, it's going to be a very solid draft overall.
Yeah. Definitely agree with that. And our next pick is going to be Magmortar for the Mississippi Mudsdales. It is going to be his fire type and going to round out his mech core. But Magmortar is a good last pick. it has Flame Body, which is always going to be sort of nice, just in terms of taking things on. It mainly has a good special attack stat at 125, but you can run it physical or special if you want. It also gets Belly Drum. But yeah, then we have myself picking Togedemaru, and I realized that I needed a Steel and Electric type, and there, Togedemaru is like the perfect fit. So, yeah, I haven't tried Togedemaru really at all, and it's a good pivot, and I'm excited to use it.
Yeah, it looks like a meme, but it's honestly pretty solid. If it got spikes, it would be set, but as it is, still very nice pick. You know, it comes in on the electric types quite well. Anyway,
Yeah.
TCP has picked Oricorio, and Oricorio is a very solid Pokemon because you can get all 4 of the forms. Personally, my favorite is Ghost, which is probably the one that he's going to be more leaning towards, as it does give him that spin blocker. But all of the options are very solid. Revelation Dance gives you the stab for each type. Hurricane is very powerful. And you know, if he decides to make this a Z user, he can hit some things very hard after, say, a Calm Mind. This is like also a Pokemon that, say, the Volcarona guy needs to watch out for, because you know, if he's not thinking straight, then Oricorio comes in and steals a Quiver Dance, and it could be over.
Yeah, and now we're gonna have Minun for the Chicago Conkelders. An interesting electric type, but with 28 teams and the majority of the electric types being taken in the last couple of rounds, I guess he's gonna have to settle for Minun. Minun can set up a nasty plot, and it can basically just do that with Thunderbolt and Hidden Power Ice. You know, I don't even know. Does it get Full Switch?
I believe so, yes. It
Yeah.
gets Baton Pass for sure though, so if not, then at least it has that for momentum.
Yeah, I'll look. Minun, yeah, it does get Volt Switch. It actually does have some good physical moves to support that base 40 physical attack.
It's a bit sad that it's his best special attacker though. Anyway, Matt Metagross has picked up Regirock. Regirock is a quite nice flying resist and quite solid rock setter, which he was kind of lacking. It's actually his only rock setter, which is going to be a bit problematic. It's not really a Pokemon that you want to bring to every single matchup, but it's one that he's probably going to have to bring pretty frequently. It's like, it is nice in a niche setting as it is a nice flying resist, but honestly, it's not something that you want to have as your solo rock setter. It can rock polish up and with weakness policy do some stuff though as well, if he wants to run offensive.
Yeah, and now we're going to have Torterra for the Miami Heatran. Another interesting pick. It is going to be his ground type. Torterra, don't even know that much about Torterra. I know that it hits pretty hard, honestly, with a good move pool, with 109 attack and 105 defense. It does get Leech Seed and I believe Synthesis if you want to. Yeah, it does get Synthesis, and if you want to run those utility moves, it does get Stealth Rocks as well. It's an interesting pick, but I guess he'll have to settle for that.
Yeah, it's a highly versatile Pokemon, but it's not particularly fantastic at anything. You know, it definitely can do some stuff in the right matchup. Anyway, so Shadow's finally picked up a water resist in Drampa. Not the best water resist, but it is a water resist, which is nice to see. It's also given him a dragon type, which, you know, dragon type's very nice, obviously. And a special attacker that's got some bulk to it. It can roost up, it can set up Calm Minds, I believe, and obviously Berserk is really nice. If it gets knocked down below 50%, then all of a sudden its next move's going to hit real hard. So yeah, it's definitely good to see that he does now have a pivot into water moves. He has options to play around it now. So he's not just going to completely auto-lose to something like a Manaphy.
And Climax is going to pick another normal type in the powerful hitter himself, Gumshoes. I have not seen this drafted before, but with adaptability and strong jaw, it's gonna put in some work with already a base.
Stakeout.
Oh yeah, stakeout. But yeah, just gonna, as long as he can get the thing in, it's gonna hit very hard. Whatever he chooses to run, and it does have a great move pool already. So.
Yeah, and Marin picking the better normal type Pokemon is the Barrel. Its simple ability is just really fantastic for it. It gets +4 instead of +2 when it sets up a Sword Stance, and coupled with Aqua Jet or Quick Attack, it's definitely gonna be a threat that you need to watch out for. Comparable to Linoon, but not quite as good, obviously, because it's not extreme speed and it's not setting up to +6, but still a very solid Pokemon. Something that can get some sweeps if people aren't careful, but definitely a very niche matchup kind of Pokemon.
Yeah, and now we're going to have Granbull, pretty solid tier B pick, going in the last round for the Phoenix Flygons and Keister. And that is going to be their Fairy type for the team. And Granbull's a pretty good Fairy type. It does get the ability Intimidate, so it does handle those physical attackers pretty well. It also does have a good attack stat at 120, and is also a cleric with Heal Bell. But it overall just has a pretty good move pool with a pretty good attack, so it's going to be able to handle some things.
Okay. So Swellow apparently dropped down here. That's very surprising to me, because Swellow, in my opinion, is one of the best tier B Pokemon. Definitely, I would consider it a round 1 to pick. It can run physical and special defensive extremely competently with both Guts Flame Orb boosted hits or Specs Boom Burst. It also has U-turns that can make for a rather strong pivot. So yeah, definitely a big fan of this pick. I've got to say, he's not looking to abuse Speed Boost with Scolipede that much, it seems. Nothing seems to really benefit too much from the Speed Boost, which is like, you know, it's good to see that he's not relying on it, but I would have liked to see a few more users than just Mamoswine and Dragalge.
Yeah, now we're going to have Guzzlord completing the Marlboro Magnetons. Guzzlord is just thick. It has a very good HP stat, obviously. In 223. And decent.
It's alright.
Yeah, just decent. And decent attack stats with special attack and physical attacks being around 100. It's mainly just gonna sit in there and take a hit and then fire something decently powerful back.
Yeah, it's not quite as strong as you'd like. So next up is Exploud. This is another Pokemon I really like, and it's probably one that I think would have fitted the Scolipede team a little bit better, honestly, because Exploud is fantastic with Speed Boost. I'm not sure I necessarily agree with it, considering he already has a Lopunny, he already has a scrappy normal move spammer. But regardless, Exploud's Boom Burst is going to hit really hard with the Specs or Skill Scarf, and he's going to be able to break through a lot of things quite easily with this. He doesn't have the best tools to deal with Steel types to help facilitate this, but they're definitely there. He can definitely play around with them a bit and, you know, get some nice wall breaking with Exploud.
Looks like next pick should be loading up in a minute.
Alright. Okay, and here we go. We have Mega Sceptile for the Randolph Rotoms. I believe that is going to complete the fairy.
He already had Goodra, but yeah.
We're just gonna. Yeah, I definitely didn't mean to say Firewater Grass, but that's all good. Sceptile it's just a fast dragon type, which is always gonna be a pretty decent tier B pick. It has 145 speed and attack, and 110 attack. So its stats are pretty good. Its move pool isn't the best, but it's actually not that bad. Looking at it, there's actually a variety of moves. He also has synthesis if he wants to use that as a recovery option. And it is a pursuit trapper, actually.
Yeah, it's actually one of my favorite megas and definitely an underrated pick in this tier. Anyway, next up is Poliwrath, and I actually really like Poliwrath too. Poliwrath is really nice because it has water absorb and it's pretty bulky. It can run Rest Talk, Bulk Up in a similar vein to Crocoon, Scold if it wants to get some burns instead of like Bulk Up. It can run Circle Throw to phase, and it also can run Belly Drum and be quite effective in that, especially in rain, which he doesn't actually have. But like maybe against Brad, he can really take advantage of that. Actually, they're on the same team, so disregard that. But yeah, it's got a few options that it can run really effectively, and paired up with Ferrothorn, it's actually going to create quite a strong defensive core.
Yeah, and we're going to have Scraggy, one of my team members. He has 2 team members of mine from last season. Scrafty is just a good fighting type for tier B. It can set up Dragon Dances if you want, has a good abilities, and Intimidate and Moxie. And it just has a good move pool and move coverage. If you want to run Dragon Dance, you can. It's always good. You can even run, like, I don't even know, Life Orb. Yeah, Swords Dance. It has, you can go Fake Out too if you want. It also can taunt things, which is good if you want to do that as well.
Yeah, so next up is Xatu, and Xatu is another one of my favorite tier B Pokemon. It's definitely often under-tiered, not here obviously because it's tier A or tier B, but you see it in like tier 5 a lot. It's a fantastic Magic Bounce user, it's a really good pivot with U-turn, it can roost up, it can take up a lot of physical hits quite well. Some special hits too, but usually you're going to want to run it physical. It can set up Calm Mind and Stored Power quite effectively. It actually demolishes Store, you guys don't even know. Because it magic bounces everything back, it sets up Calm Minds and then Stored Power moves through everything. Definitely a very solid Pokemon, and I'm also somewhat surprised to see it go this late.
And now we're going to have Spiritomb for the Carolina Pangoras. Spiritomb is always a solid tier B Ghost and Dark type. Has a good physical wall. It gets all of the utility moves like Will-O-Wisp and Pain Split and all those nice things. It also gets Shadow Sneak for priority, and it does hit pretty hard if you give it something like maybe even Black Glasses. It does have the priority in Sucker Punch and Shadow Sneak, and it does it is a pursuit trapper as well.
Yeah, definitely really good typing. So next up is Pangoro, and I'm also a big fan of this Pokemon. Not as much as the others, but it definitely hits really hard. Dark typing is always a favorite of mine because it just hits so many things. It has a lot of issues with fairy types, which his team doesn't handle offensively super well, but he does have that reliable switch in his Golbat, so it's not too big of an issue. It has priority in Bullet Punch and I think Sucker Punch. You can set up bulk ups. Parting Shot is a really good option on it too. Very good ability to get in some things like Superior to get up a sub that it might not have gotten otherwise. Anyway, next up I picked up Gorebyce. I didn't have a water type and I didn't necessarily need one too badly. I had it kind of covered, but I decided I'd pick up one anyway because it's just a really good type to have. Gorebyce gives me a setup sweeper which I otherwise didn't really have. Shell Smash is really versatile. I can it's not necessarily going to get a lot of sweeps, it's a bit situational, but you know, if I can get a Shell Smash off it, it's going to be really nice. Unfortunately, I can't baton pass that out, which is a shame.
Yeah, and now we're going to have Mega Infros for the London Lapras and Cody. This was one of Brad's team on his roster last season. I was gonna say teammates, but that doesn't make sense. And it is just a powerful, hard-hitting dragon type that's in tier B. It has a very good special attack stat, and also does have the pivot with Volt Switch. It is slow, which is going to be a problem, but I think knowing Cody, he'll use it pretty well in the off season.
Yeah, it's definitely really good on paper, but then it like sometimes doesn't function as well in practice. So Hutch here has picked up Ordino, and Ordino's like, that's going to be really annoying with a tank growth. Regenerator is an annoying ability in of itself, but when you pair it up with 2 Regenerator Pokemon, all of a sudden you've got some use. Because you're just going to be able to switch back and forth, and not end up taking any damage against the right kind of setup. So in any kind of stall situation, he's pretty much going to win out. It also gives him wish support, which is really nice for Savali and Mesprit, and I believe also another Brocker, so that's good to see.
Yeah, and now we're going to have Yan Mega going out for the Denver Numals and the Master. Yan Mega is a pretty good tier B type that does get speed boost. Unfortunately, doesn't get much setup moves, so it's just gonna stay in there and click a move, but it is going to make it good for chipping things down. It does have U-turn for pivot, and it does have some utility moves as well, if need be. But it looks like we're going to move into pick 250.
Yeah, the big 250. This is Luxray, once again, getting a nice electric type. This one's usually run more physically offensive. It has Guts, Flame Orb, but it does also get Volt Switch, so it does make for a decent pivot, especially with Intimidate to weaken some attacks down. And yeah, so it can be pretty good there. He definitely has some very strong Pokemon to be Volt switching into, like Staraptor and Mega Gardevoir, so you definitely don't want to give him the momentum that he's looking for with this Pokemon and Jirachi. It's definitely got a lot of threatening options here.
And now we're going to have Ludicolo for the St. Louis Samurats, and this is going to be his grass type and another good Mon in rain. So it looks like Brad's team is going to be a very fun team to use. Ludicolo with Swift Swim is going to be very annoying to face. Hydro Pump in the rain is very scary, but yeah, I think you can finish this off with the last pick.
Sounds good. And looks like
should load up in a minute.
Have it load up.
I forgot to put it on the draft log. It'll be up in a minute.
It's fine.
Here it
I'm
is.
sure whatever our valiant captain picks will be fantastic.
Oh, it is fantastic.
He picks nothing.
Yeah, I forgot to put it on the log. It'll be up in a minute.
It's okay. Wailord, his namesake. Okay, so Wailord is actually a garbage Pokemon.
Crazy.
But it's also his favorite Pokemon. So maybe he'll be able to do something with it because he's got experience with it. I don't know. But, you know, I don't think it's necessarily the best choice. Especially considering it already has a Rotom Wash. He didn't need the water type. It's kind of just for the meme. But, you know.
I guess he wasn't Rocker and didn't choose like Floatzel or something.
That's true.
Anyways.
Speaking of rockers, he probably could have used another one.
Alright, let's go ahead and wrap this up. So, thank you guys all for watching the ASL Season 4 Off-Season Draft
Before we
stream.
do that, do you want to talk about what teams we think were the strongest?
Yeah, sure, why not?
Can you facilitate that on the stream, or do we have to just look through the rosters ourselves?
I can
just
go...
look at the rosters.
I'll go through the draft visual. Okay, one sec. We'll just go back to pick one. Okay, there, we can go through each team this way.
Alright, sounds good.
So whenever Keiser's team pops up, you can go ahead and talk about it.
Okay, this is Barb's. Okay, so yes, Keister's got a pretty bulky team with the Slowbro and Hitmon's hot stuff, but it's mostly pretty offensive. He's got Spike Stack with Roserade, which I like to see, especially with the Kieran Black. I definitely do like how he's worked the Kieran Black, but he definitely should have drafted some more hazard removal, I feel. I do like the team though.
Yeah, just let me know when you want to go to the next one.
Yeah, I agree. Don't have much else to say.
So yeah, let's go to the next one then.
Alright.
Yeah. That's what I was trying to say. Okay, so for the Carolina Pangoros, they have a first pick of Celesteela, and it's overall a pretty good team. Besides that Mega Manectric, the team is pretty slow, but it does have some good hard hitters, and I think if they're able to work around the speed, then he should be pretty good.
Yeah, it looks like he was going to take a bulkier approach when he picked up the Celesteela, but then it seemed very offensive until he got to the Rhydon. It's definitely also a really biased towards physical offense. He's going to have some difficulty breaking a lot of the physically defensive walls if he doesn't play his Manectric well, and I guess he can run Rizzy on special, but other than that, it's kind of limited options there.
Alright. Next team. Want to get this one?
Yeah, I'm a big fan of this one. He's got some really strong... He's got some very good defensive cores with Venusaur, Milotic, Electros, Rhyperior, all complementing each other quite well. And then he's got the... Then he's got the offensive backing of Blacephalon and Heracross, who just breaks through things that threaten him. He could probably use some better Volt Turn options to bring it in. He's basically just got an Electros and I guess technically Ambibomb. But it's it's gonna be difficult to switch into those offensive Pokemon if you can get them in. It's just, can he get them in?
Yeah, I agree with that too. Okay, so for the Totodile Hotspur, you have a very good team overall. I'm so salty about that Whimsicott snipe, but he does have a good team overall. His first 4 picks were all pretty good, picking up 2 Genies. He has a lot of really hard hitting, like on the special side with Tailglow, and yeah.
Yeah, he's got the option for Trick Room, but he's not reliant on it. He's got, everything can function quite well out of Trick Room. The one issue is that he kind of only really has the Emboar and the Uniclus to use Trick Room, so it's not necessarily going to be the best option to run Trick Room every time. But, you know, it's still very solid. I like this team quite a lot, honestly. He's got Mega Kangaskhan, which is always very good Pokemon, and then he's got Taunty and Rotom Wash, which are really strong pivots to get him in. He's got the Crocodile to pursue traps like ghosts that might want to come in and screw him over. He's got Ariados for webs. Not sure why he chose Ariados for webs when there are a lot of better options, but he has that. He's got some pretty decent bulk overall, and yeah, Wailord.
Yeah, I don't have much else to say. I do like most of his tier B picks, especially those middle 3. I think that they really suit his team pretty well.
Really solid budget, Fairy Dragon Steel there. I do think he probably could have used some more rock setters, but other than that, it's solid.
Yeah. Okay, so for the Arcane Arcanines, I also think this is a very good team. I do like the offensive presence that he has with Kartana and Mega Absol, supported by the webs from Galvantula. He also does have a decent presence defensively with Togekiss and Miltank, Quagsire, Flareon. And then he also has the Gothitelle to, just cover anything that wants to stop Kartana.
Yeah, he could have used some better ways to get the Gothitelle in, like some more viable, eject button users or something. but I definitely like the fact that he can quite viably bring like hyper offense or like a more balanced kind of maybe Stally even with the like unaware Quagsire and the trappers. But yeah, it's definitely more leaning towards the offense there. Hutch's team I'm also a big fan of. I really like his pivots with Coco and Savali stuff. Even though I'm not personally a huge fan of Savali, Parting Shot is fantastic for getting in stuff like Mega Pinsir and Terrakion. Big threats that you need to watch out for. Really strong defensive cores. Pretty solid hazard setters. So yeah, it's going to be a difficult one to deal with for sure.
Yeah, I definitely agree. His first 4 picks, I think, we're really getting are going to be really scary to face. So yeah. So now we have the Orlando Bulbasaur, which is awesome. This is guy's team. I do like his first 4 picks again, his tier A picks. The Megalopony, and they all just kind of synergize really well. I get that there's like some exceptions, but like they're mostly I mean, honestly, his entire team is good. His tier B picks really suit his team well, and I think that besides the I don't know what I was saying. Besides the I forgot.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I wish
besides the normal spam thing.
I wish he drafted a good steel type because he does have some difficulties breaking through fairy types, but other than that, I do really like Megalopony Hydreigon specifically. Because Hydreigon's really good at breaking the walls that trouble Lopunny outside of like Clefable and stuff. Climax's team, I'm not a huge fan of this one, honestly. It seems a bit weak overall. It's like, I'm not sure exactly what he's going for. It's like fairly slow, not a lot of super heavy hitters. There's like setup sweepers with Kommo-o, Mimikyu, etc. But nothing that's necessarily going to hit super hard right off the bat, except for like maybe Mega Abomasnow. It does seem like there's going to be some difficulty breaking through stuff like Cresselia, though. Especially with Wish passing Licky Licky for the Heatran.
Yeah, I agree. He definitely has some threatening setup sweepers that could kind of change the way the game's going to go. But on to the Zagreb Zangooses, coached by Marin. This team is also a team that I really like. As you said earlier, Mega Scizor and Keldeo synergize really well together, and I think all the tier A picks just kind of work well with each other. The tier B picks work well also, besides that his speed is not incredibly high. I think that he'll probably be able to work around that though. And
yeah, he does at least have one Pokemon that's over 110, sorry. So that's good to see. But
he's missing a fairy type.
And he has a couple of priority users, but yeah, the tier B doesn't feel quite as well synergetically as the tier A, but you know, the tier A does synergize really well, so it's understandable. Anyway, AZ, a lot of big wall breaking threats in tier A, and then a lot to try to support them in tier B. I do like that. He's got Klefki for speed control and Spike Stack. He's got Chestnut for Spike Stack, comes in on a fair few things, as well as Seismitoad to, you know, just defensively come in on anything that's threatening the other Pokemon. He's got Persian as a really good pivot option to get in those Pokemon safely, as well as R2 to keep hazards away and give you turn. Definitely a lot of good synergy with his wall breakers.
Yeah, I agree. I think that's kind of anything that I would have to say. Moving on to the St. Louis Samurott, coached by Brad, aka Anderson. This team, I personally like it, and I think that he's going to have a lot of fun using it, and I would probably too. The rain is obviously something that's going to be hard to work around for some people. Zergatry is going to be scary as well. And at the end of the day, his team is just very good. He also does have the option for triggering with Kecleon if he actually wants to. But
yeah, I know that. It's a very unorthodox draft for sure. He's missing a steal and fairy, but there's definitely a lot of threatening stuff as well. Mega Swampert and Ludicolo in rain is ridiculous. Circuitry's going to hit everything really hard, so is Champ. He's got T-Spike stacks for Drapion, but there's a few iffy things I've got to say. Anyway, Mr. Spider's got quite a scary team too. It's very, very weak to Ghost and Dark, but outside of that, it's got a lot going for it. Jirachi is a fantastic pivot option. It's super versatile for the team. It can get in Mega Gardevoir or Staraptor really well to just break through stuff. He's got some nice defensive cores outside of the fact that it all gets bodied by Ghost and Dark. And yeah, just flying spam, pursuit trapping and stuff. It's a lot of good options there.
yeah, I definitely agree. I'm kind of looking forward to see how he uses things like the Luxray and the Staraptor. And I just hope he does well with them. Okay, so for the PC Barcelona, this team was interesting to say the least. I think we all can tell that this is basically just hyper offense. The synergies, they didn't really synergize greatly. I know Shadow wasn't here for the draft, but this was mainly exactly what his draft plan said, I think. But I feel like he's going to have a tough time this offseason. He does have a lot of holes. He is weak to water, as you said, so we'll see.
Yeah, definitely the weakest draft to me. A lot of issues. If he can keep up offensive pressure, then he should be good. But I do feel like he's going to have to sack a lot of the time, which is obviously going to be difficult for him. So moving on to Gran. When you draft Scolipede first, I expect you to have more Pokemon to take advantage of Speed Boost, if I'm being honest. Scolipede definitely does not need to be speed passing to be effective. It's a fantastic hazard setter and Swords Dance sweeper in its own right. But it's definitely got its main notoriety as a speed boost passer. And while anything can receive speed and be effective, it definitely didn't seem to be anything that he was particularly thinking about during this draft. He definitely does have that really strong defensive core in Finny Mew. He's got hazard options and removal options for days, but could have been a bit more threatening if he went for maybe Xurkitree earlier, or X-Cloud instead of Swallow.
Okay, sorry about that. Yeah, so let's go with Ghost team. Ghost, I do like his team a lot. I think that his 4-tier A's are interesting. They synergize decently, but they all have kind of unique ways that they're going to be helpful. I think the Linoon was a good pick. Slurpuff was a little interesting, considering he could have gone for more offensive, but we'll see.
Well, it's important to remember that Slurpuff gets webs, which is obviously going to be a really nice nice bonus for Volcanion. Now all of a sudden it's outspeeding a lot, it's hitting things hard with Steam Eruption. And his first 3 picks especially synergize really well with it. You can talk about your draft.
Okay, so I ended up liking this draft. It wasn't exactly how I planned, although the first 3 picks... Oh wait, no, that's not even true. I intended on getting Heatran. But anyways, I just wanted to use Mega Pidgeot, and that's what I got, so I'm happy. I'm excited to use the team, so we'll see. I get that there's some holes. The speed tiers are a little weird, but besides that...
even that bad, honestly. Mega Pidgeot's quite fast, so is Zygarde 10%, and you do have Shuckle Webs to patch that up. There's a few redundancies and weird things, but you have the offensive pressure as well as some solid defensive picks, so I do like this draft.
Thank you. Okay, on to your team.
Yeah, so I built this team. I originally only planned the Muckalolan and me and Shao or Conkelda in this team. I was pretty easy with whatever else I got, but I was definitely very pleased with what I had. Latios is super versatile, it's one of my favourite dragons, and I regret not picking it up last season. Muckalolan just synergizes really well, because not only does it like remove a big check for a lot of my team, but it also just really helped get rid of those fairy types and ghost types, etc. I got a lot of nice bulk in Sylveon and Registeel and Gligar especially. I just kind of feel a bit iffy about my water pick. I didn't have any better options at that point, really. And I kind of wish I got Frogadier instead of Selgor, maybe. But other than that, I'm quite happy with it.
Yeah, I definitely agree with you. I have to say, I don't know what else to say. I think that the Excelgor was a good pick, though. Just maybe in terms of personal preference. So for Washington Red Skitty, coached by Matt, I like this team a lot as well. The first 3 picks I really like personally. Like, I think those all synergize pretty well. The Jellicent was an interesting pickup with Mega Gyarados already there, but I think that it's not going to hold him back that much, and he should use it well. And I think that his team is overall a good balanced team. He doesn't have anything that's super fast, so that might be a little problem. But besides that,
yeah, I wasn't a big fan of his tier B, but his tier A was very nice. Zygarde 50 being one of my favourite sweepers for sure, and it just synergizes really well with Forges and Mega Gyarados. I definitely also really liked the Rotom Mo pick, but other than that it started becoming a little bit redundant and not really covering everything that he should have, I felt. Milan's team is interesting to me, because it's got the Ninetales for Aurora Veil, but it doesn't necessarily have the best Pokemon to abuse that Aurora Veil. Serpera is really nice for it, and so is Suicune, but other than that, it's not doing so well. He's clearly not, like, relying on it, which is good, but at the same time, I feel like he possibly could have gotten away with throwing on some more threats, maybe get a tier B electric type instead of the Jolteon and pick up something that could take advantage of it a bit better, like some kind of bulky setup sweeper, for example. But yeah, other than that, it's definitely a really solid draft.
yeah, when I first saw the draft plan, I definitely thought it was a little interesting, but I think that Juan's a good coach, and hopefully it'll work out for him. On to the Hartford Whalers, coached by the Chrissy Panda. His first pick, Deoxys Speed and Mega Diancie, his first picks were both very good picks in my opinion. I like to see them used by him because I think it'll be interesting. But then it gets actually interesting because he picks Stakataka, and I'm honestly pretty surprised. I am personally one of the doubters of Stakataka. I haven't really seen it used very effectively, but I hope that of all people he can prove me wrong. And then the Araquanid was a good pick as well. I think overall his team is pretty good. His tier Bs were very good also. So yeah.
If he can use Deoxys Speed well, then it's going to be really nice for him. We're yet to see Deoxys Speed really put in all that much work, but I definitely know that it has the potential to do so. And he has a lot of options here with Pseudo Trick Room and Sticky Webs and stuff, as well as some nice breakers.
Yeah.
So next up is Demaster, who apparently doesn't like Skarmory, even though the only other league I've seen him in he drafted Skarmory, but that's beside the point. Or well, tried to draft Skarmory, that is. Ditto's nice for it, and Rain's nice for it, and other than that he's just kind of gotten a pretty balanced thing. Those are the only really interesting things I'd say. He's got some nice priority with Mega Banette and Infernape. He's fleshed out his Fire, Water, Grass, and doesn't have a Fairy Dragon Steel, but you know, very solid. Getting Zapdos pick 4 is always nice.
Yeah, I definitely agree with you. I think that I really liked his first 4 picks. But yeah, on to the Chicago Conkelders. And I like this team a lot. Up until the Alomomola pick, I think his team is like one of the best teams out there. I do like the way that the first 3 picks synergize, and really Toxapex as well. So the first 4. I think besides the Alomomola, his team was really solid. It had most of the boxes checked. Maybe hazard removal, but he doesn't have that much weakness to hazard. So
yeah, but if he did pick up play, and like Cryogonal was still available at the time that he picked up Alomomola, I think he might have just picked it up because he didn't want anyone else to have it, honestly, and that makes sense because fuck Alomomola.
Yeah.
Next one should be loading.
Yeah, next up is... I don't remember, but I'm just going to start talking anyway. Next up
I think it's you.
Next up is Catast's Draft, and I really like this one. If he can get the right matchups, Cloyster's going to be a really solid pick for him. And you know, if he doesn't end up working out with Cloyster, then he also has Venomoth as a really confident sweeper. Landorus T as well, fantastic Pokemon. His defense is quite nice with Lando, Mandibuzz, Goodra, Escavalier even. I'm not necessarily a huge fan of his fairy type being Comfy. Comfy's not a Pokemon that you can bring all that much. But I am a big fan of the fact that he was able to get Mega Sceptile as the last pick. That's definitely a really strong pick to me.
Yeah, I don't have much else to say about the team besides that.
Yeah.
It's going to be kind of fun to see how he uses them.
Though, too.
Yeah. So the Intermilotic, coached by Static, I personally think this is one of the best teams in the draft. I think they all just kind of work together pretty well, and he does have all of the cores that you would need. The Poliwrath was the water for the core, but I still think that it was just a good pick in general. I don't know, but I don't have much else to say just because besides that it was one of my favorites.
Yeah, it's going to be really annoying to break defensively. It was clearly built around Charizard, and it was done quite well. The only thing I'd say is like he possibly could have had some better hazard removal than what he does for a team with Charizard, because Gliscor doesn't usually want to run Defog, and Kamala isn't the best Pokemon to be bringing each week either. Anyway, next up is Muff, and this is another one of my least favourite drafts, honestly. He did somewhat patch his issues in the later picks in Tier B, but he's definitely got a lot of weaknesses common, and while Celebi can be a nice water and ground resist for him, it's gonna get hit really hard by U-turn, so anything that gets hit hard by U-turn to me isn't the most reliable switch into things, because a lot of things will just be running U-turn, and then all of a sudden you're dying if you try to switch into a Surf or Earthquake. So yeah, definitely gonna have to play well to get around those weaknesses, but Sand Drill is almost always a threat.
Yeah, I don't have much else to say just besides that. I think his team started off strong and then just kind of went downhill from there. Besides the maybe last couple of picks, but that's it.
Next one should be loading up soon. And we have 2 more, counting the next pick.
Okay, so for the London Lapras and Cody, he was able to pick his beloved Cobalion as the first pick. At least he did not get the Toge, whatever you want to call it. I guess I call it Toge, but whatever. I do like his team. It's a little slow besides that Talonflame and Zoroark and Cobalion. I think his team is good though overall, just in terms of maintaining balance. And he definitely has hazards covered.
Yeah, not necessarily the best removal at all.
Yeah.
It's Talonflame. That's it. I don't know about you, but I'm not in the business of running default Talonflame. personally at least. Especially considering it doesn't get priority boosts anymore. But other than that, other than removal, which I don't think is the most important thing in the world, I think it's a very solid team. Anyway, next up is Zeb Strikers. Not a huge fan of this one. It's a lot of offense, but there's a fair few redundancies type-wise. It's got Breloom, Torterra, it's got Metagross and Empoleon. It's got a lot of priority, but not much is switching into hits that well. Like, you've got Metagross and Empoleon as kind of your only solid pivots, other than like maybe Torterra and somewhat Hariyama can do it, but I don't know, there's a fair few common weaknesses and stuff. I'm just not a big fan of how it looks, really.
Yeah, I'm also not a big fan of this team. I think that I haven't really seen him play though, so who knows? This might be his style, but we'll see.
On paper, it ticks the boxes, but I don't know. It just doesn't look that nice to me.
Alright.
Very subjective.
So that's gonna go ahead and wrap up all our recaps. This is about a 3-hour draft with like the 30-minute recaps. So thank you to everyone who came out watching the stream, drafting. Of course, special thanks to our commentators, Excellent Name and Malone. Easily one of the smoothest drafts that we've ever had for an ASL draft. So
yeah,
you're welcome.
Yeah, thank you. It was really fun, and there will be no YouTube coverage of the off season. There never is, but we will see you guys back for season 5.
Stay tuned. Stay tuned for the championship video.
Yeah, there will be some videos next week regarding the championship week, so look out for that. And thank you guys for all coming out, and we'll see you guys later.